Chapter 289. Luo Shixin knew very well. The first test for him as a division commander was how to unite the 5 young generals by his side. Perhaps this division's training would be an opportunity. In the blink of an eye, the situation on the battlefield changed again. The 2nd Brigade underestimated the enemy, and unknowingly fell into the wolf pack's encirclement. Add to that the sudden increase in the number of wolves and the pressure on them increased, and they fell into a tough battle. Luo Shixin waved his flag and ordered the 5th Brigade to reinforce the 2nd Brigade, saving them from the wolf pack. Sun Quanlin received the order and directed his soldiers to the west, concentrating on killing the wolves there. The dense rain of arrows caused heavy casualties to the wolf pack, and Sun Tingjiao seized the opportunity to break out of the encirclement. After a while, the 2nd Brigade was forced back to their original position, suffering quite a number of casualties. The medic team immediately went up and carried the injured soldiers to the center for simple bandages. Luo Shixin was sure that there was an alpha wolf commanding the wolves from behind. Otherwise, the wolves wouldn't be able to advance and retreat so strategically, even knowing how to divide and surround them. The key to defeating the wolf pack was to find the alpha wolf. However, the sea of wolves was a sea of gray as far as the eye could see, and they were all the same in size. In his eyes, every wolf looked the same, so how was he supposed to tell which one was the alpha? Luo Shixin changed his mindset. The alpha wolf was a commander just like him. Imagine, if he was the alpha wolf, where would he hide? With this question in mind, Luo Shixin carefully observed the wolf pack's movements. Tens of thousands of ferocious wolves surrounded the army in circles and fought with the army. The scene was extremely explosive. In the sky, wolf heads streaked across in an endless stream, as if it was raining wolf heads. The plan to surround the 2nd Brigade failed, and the wolves made a new move. They began to target the 1st Brigade. Just like the 2nd Brigade, the 1st Brigade fought in units of platoons. Fortunately, Lin Yi was more experienced than Sun Tingjiao, and didn't make the mistake of underestimating the enemy. Even so, the 1st Brigade was made up of real heavy cavalry, and they weren't built for long battles. Prolonged battles were a huge test for the horses' stamina. Slowly, the soldiers began to show signs of fatigue and their attacks slowed down. The wolves were so sharp that they immediately sensed the enemy's weakness and waited for an opportunity to strike. The wolves on the other 3 sides quietly gathered towards the north. Luo Shixin smiled coldly and thought to himself, "I've finally caught you." With a wave of the command flag, the 2nd and 4th Brigades moved to the north from the east and west respectively, while the 5th Brigade remained in place. Luo Shixin led his personal guard camp and charged out, heading straight for the northernmost area. The soldiers of the personal guard camp had been holding back their energy for a long time. Seeing the division commander give the order, they charged towards the north like a herd of wild horses. All the wolves that blocked their way were turned into meat paste. Luo Shixin took the lead and charged out. He purposely showed off his skills in front of the generals, using the steel overlord spear in his hand to show off its might. With a sweep of the spear, the wolf's skull was shattered on the spot, its brain juices splattering everywhere. The generals were overwhelmed with shock. One had to know that skulls were the hardest, not to mention that they were used to sweep. Luo Shixin's spear skills were amazing, and with his unparalleled strength in the sky, he was truly the reincarnation of an overlord, a true hero. Lin Yi and the other generals couldn't even catch up to him. Luo Shixin was truly terrifying when he used his full strength. The wolves saw his power and arranged for hundreds of wolves to surround and attack him. Luo Shixin wasn't afraid at all. With a sweep of his spear to the left and right, he immediately cleared half of the area. He was truly invincible. Even so, the wolves were still fearless. After one wave died, another wave charged forward. It was as if there was something extremely important behind the wolves that they needed to protect with their lives. Seeing this, Luo Shixin was even more confident and resolutely charged forward. The large number of wolves couldn't stop him at all. How ferocious was he? The steel overlord's spear in his hand whistled as he wielded it, bringing up puddles of blood and brain juices. The scene was extremely heroic. Seeing their general's power, the soldiers couldn't help but cheer in unison. At this time, the morale of the entire army was at its highest. A group of hot-blooded men, under Luo Shirshin's lead, forcefully split the wolves in half, and finally broke through the encirclement of the wolves. Luo Shirshin took the lead. When he finished off the last batch of wolves, a strange scene appeared in front of him, making him dumbfounded. Behind the pack of wolves, a tall wild wolf stood there, motionless. This wild wolf, other than being a little bigger, had no other special features. The most special thing was the white wolf lying on the head of the wild wolf. The wolf cub was the size of a cat, and its fur was pure white, without a single blemish. What was more special was that pair of eyes. It was really extraordinarily spirited. At first glance, even the eyes of a normal person wouldn't be as vivid and lifelike. It was really full of spirituality. Division Commander, could it be that the one commanding the wolves is this little wolf cub? Su Wang, the personal guard beside Luo Shirshin, said in disbelief. I can't be wrong. Think about it, ordinary wolves don't have such spirited eyes. If it was in the past, Luo Shirshin wouldn't have believed in the existence of spirit beasts. It was not until he came to Shanhai County and saw the guardian beast of Shanhai County, Nian, that he realized how big the world was. Then, should we kill it? Su Wang couldn't bear to kill it. No. Luo Shirshin shook his head and said, "This kind of spirit beast is extremely rare. It would be a pity to kill it. Capture it and bring it back to the Marquis. I'm sure Third Miss will like it very much." Division Commander, why are you flattering the Marquis? Su Wang said with a smile. Go, go, go! Luo Shirshin was embarrassed into anger. Hurry up and capture it. If it escapes, you'll be held responsible. Yes, Division Commander. Su Wang straightened up and led the personal guards to surround the white wolf cub. At this moment, the wolf pack seemed to have gone crazy, recklessly charging towards the north. Luo Shirshin was even more certain that the white wolf was the commander of the wolf pack, mobilizing the army to block the wolf pack outside. Seeing that victory was in sight, the soldiers did not dare to slack off. They used all their strength to fight the wolf pack's final frenzy. Fortunately, although Su Wang was usually mischievous, he was not careless when it came to handling matters. He captured the white wolf in a few moves. The little fellow was intelligent, but its martial strength was not that great. It was no different from an ordinary wolf cub. However, the wild wolf that served as the white wolf's mount died tragically in the hands of the personal guards. After being captured, the white wolf was not afraid. Its pair of watery eyes curiously sized up Luo Shirshin and the others. The hearts of these iron-blooded men were about to melt. Luo Shirshin took the little white wolf from Su Wang's hands and lifted it by the neck. He suspended the little white wolf in the air and said, "Little guy, I know you can understand what I'm saying. Let those wolves retreat, don't make unnecessary sacrifices." The little fellow glanced at Luo Shirshin, scratched its little head with its little claws, stared at its calves, turned its head, and called out to the wolf pack in a childish voice, "A wolf?" Luo Shirshin tried hard to hold back his laughter. Such a cute voice really did not match the little fellow's status. More importantly, the little fellow's voice was not loud. Luo Shirshin wondered if the wolf pack could hear its voice. The next scene made Luo Shirshin and the others' jaws drop. The wolf pack that was fighting desperately a moment ago suddenly stopped. The wolf pack reluctantly looked in the direction of the white wolf, then turned and left one after another. In an instant, the wolf pack retreated like the tide and soon disappeared. It really came and went without a trace. Luo Shirshin breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally taken it down. What puzzled him was that there was no notification from the sky that the trial was over, and the portal did not appear. He did not dare to be careless. He ordered the troops to form a defensive formation and wait for the next wave of enemies. Sure enough, before the second division could recover, there was another change in the grassland. Fire broke out of thin air in the east, south, and west. Then a strong wind blew out of thin air, and the fire quickly spread with the help of the wind, turning the grassland into a sea of fire. The soldiers had never seen such a spectacle, and there was a commotion in the troops. Luo Shirshine was the calmest. He ordered the army to shrink the line of defense and prepared to retreat to the north, the only place that was not on fire. At this moment, the rumbling sound of hooves suddenly came from the north, which seemed to be the safest. Luo Shirshine snorted. He knew that things would not be so simple. He ordered the divisions not to panic, and to seize the time to reorganize the front line before the fire spread, and not to retreat to the north in a swarm. After a while, a black line came from the north. It was tens of thousands of grassland cavalry. The cavalry came whistling, accompanied by bursts of whistling, and actually surrounded the soldiers of the 2nd Division as prey. Luo Shirshine smiled coldly. The courageous won in a narrow encounter. The 2nd Division had no way out. If they wanted to survive, they had to break through the grassland cavalry's interception. He placed the 1st and 2nd Brigades in the middle of the army, the 3rd and 4th Brigades as the left and right wings, and the 5th Brigade as the vanguard. After the army was deployed, they took the lead to charge. Kill! This time, Luo Shirshine still took the lead, charging at the front with his personal guard battalion. The rumbling sound of hooves exploded in the grassland, like stormy waves. Surrounded by the sea of fire, the 2 cavalry units fought with their backs to the wall and charged toward the enemy. The first to come into contact with the enemy was the 5th Brigade, acting as the vanguard. The 2 sides began to compete with crossbows on their horses. Compared to the grassland cavalry, the archery of the 5th Brigade was a little worse, but fortunately, they were equipped with crossbows. The crossbow was specially developed for the cavalry by the crossbow department. It was light, fast, and could be pulled with one hand. It was extremely sharp. What was sacrificed was a little advantage in range. Even so, the modified crossbow still had a better range than the bow. The vast rain of arrows intertwined in the air, colliding with each other, trying to kill the enemy. Luo Shirshine's decisiveness gave the 2nd Division the upper hand. The grassland cavalry obviously did not expect the other side to take the initiative to attack, and were caught off guard. To be continued. Chapter 290. Under the rain of arrows, Luo Shirshine led his personal guards into the enemy's formation and started a massacre. If the grassland cavalry was a pack of wolves, then Luo Shirshine was a grassland lion. He charged recklessly into the wolf pack, and no one could withstand a single strike from his spear. Luo Shirshine's ferocity made the grassland cavalry tremble. The grassland cavalry was not to be trifled with. How could they tolerate such a small force led by Luo Shirshine? They mobilized the army and surrounded the personal guards. The soldiers of the personal guards were not as brave as Luo Shirshine and immediately fell into a bitter battle. Not only that, the grassland cavalry had the advantage in numbers and still had the upper hand in the crossbow duel, firmly suppressing the 5th Brigade. Even the 3rd and 4th Brigades on the flanks were affected by the rain of arrows and suffered many casualties. The grassland cavalry was unparalleled in riding and archery. Everything happened in a flash. Just as the 5th Brigade was about to reach the front of the formation, they tacitly dispersed to the sides and circled to the flanks of the grassland cavalry. The 3rd and 4th Brigades followed and restrained the enemy on the flank. After the 5th Brigade dispersed, the real main character appeared. Following the 5th Brigade, the 1st and 2nd Brigades launched a group charge. The cavalry unsheathed their lances and pointed them forward. With an indomitable momentum, they charged towards the grassland cavalry. The invincible heavy-armored cavalry, under the sunlight, reflected a dazzling golden light from their radiant armor. They were like heavenly soldiers and generals, majestic and unstoppable. Facing such elite troops, the grassland cavalry finally tasted the bitterness of outdated equipment. The rain of arrows shot by the grassland cavalry hit the radiant armor and directly slid off, unable to cause any fatal damage. The 5,000 heavy-armored cavalry did not slow down and directly penetrated the grassland cavalry's formation, forcibly carving out a bloody path from the front to the back. For a moment, the grassland cavalry's formation was in chaos and could no longer stop the 2nd Division from breaking out. The brigades did not continue fighting. Breaking out of the encirclement was their top priority. The grassland cavalry in chaos could only watch as the 2nd Division successfully broke out of the encirclement and gathered behind them. The situation was completely reversed. Just as the two sides were fighting, the fire on 3 sides of the grassland had completely spread. The raging fire was like a fire dragon, fiercely rushing towards the grassland cavalry in the north. Thick smoke filled the entire battlefield. Division commander, should we stop them? Let them burn alive, Sun Tingjiao suggested. No. Luo Shixin immediately rejected the idea and said, blocking their path of retreat will only force them to fight with their backs against the wall. It's the same mentality as us before. In the worst-case scenario, both sides will suffer. Then what should we do? We can't just let them go like this, right? Sun Tingjiao was somewhat unwilling. You want to leave? It's not that easy. Luo Shixin smiled coldly and said, arrange for the army to leave a passageway in the middle so that the enemy can only escape through that passageway. We will attack from both sides. This is a good idea. The generals were overjoyed. Luo Shixin's strategy not only gave hope to the grassland cavalry, but also destroyed their morale by making them lose the determination to fight with their backs against the wall. It also killed 2 birds with 1 stone. It was really wonderful. Lin Yi looked at Luo Shixin with a complicated expression. In this battle, whether it was Luo Shixin's individual martial arts, tactical arrangements, or battlefield command, after a small demonstration, he was completely convinced. This time, Lin Yi was completely convinced. Perhaps Luo Shixin noticed Lin Yi's expression, or perhaps he didn't. His expression didn't change at all as he continued to mobilize the army, preparing to give the grassland cavalry a surprise. Even ants were greedy for life, let alone humans. The fire was about to spread to their feet, and the grassland cavalry was already prepared to fight with their backs against the wall. Who would have thought that the enemy would leave a passageway for them? Although their instincts told them that the enemy was tricking them, they didn't think too much about it when their lives were in danger. They rushed to the passageway, fighting for that slim chance of survival. The passageway was a path of life, but also a path of death. Not to mention the arrows fired by the 2nd Division on both sides, the grassland cavalry was also trampling over each other from time to time in order to escape with their lives. Everyone was fighting over the bridge, and it was a tragic scene. When half of the grassland cavalry had crossed, Luo Shixin waved his flag. In an instant, the 1st and 2nd Brigade locked down the passageway, completely blocking the grassland cavalry's escape route. They wanted to burn them alive. The rain of arrows formed a line of death, and any grassland cavalry who dared to cross the line died under the rain of arrows. Even if there were 1 or 2 lucky ones who managed to rush to the front of the 2nd Division, it was of no use. The raging fire, ignoring the cries of the grassland cavalry, spread with a stone-hearted determination. The stopped cavalrymen were blocked by the rain of arrows in front of them and burned by the fire behind them. It was a tragic scene. It was not that the grassland cavalry who fled first did not think of rescuing them. However, Luo Shixin would not give them the chance. The 3rd and 4th Brigades had already rushed over. They should be glad that they could save their lives. After destroying the intercepted grassland cavalry, Luo Shixin wanted to follow up the victory and annihilate the other half of the enemy. At this moment, a whisper came from the sky. The army trial is officially over. The trial is past. Along with the words, the grassland fire was miraculously extinguished, and even the bodies of the grassland cavalry disappeared. At the same time, the soldiers of the 2nd Division who had died in battle were resurrected one after another, as if a lifetime had passed. The magical scene was like a dream. Only the little white wolf lying in Luo Shirshin's pouch proved that everything that happened just now really happened. In this battle, the 2nd Division paid the price of more than 2,000 people to pass the trial. A teleportation gate appeared in the grassland. "Let's go back to the division." Luo Shirshin ordered the divisions to pass through the teleportation gate one after another, and he walked at the back. Less than half an hour had passed since the battle on the grassland had ended in the main plain. Just as the 2nd Division walked out of the teleportation gate, Ouyang Shua, who had been waiting in the drill ground, heard the sound of a system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player not say you have no clothes. The 2nd Division of Shanghai County has successfully passed the army trial. You have been awarded a military flag and a general's flag. Please check for yourself. A white light flashed, and 2 flags appeared in Ouyang Shua's hands. Gaia was very resourceful. The design of the military flag was based on the military flag that Ouyang Shua had designed for the Vanguard Battalion. The blue sea was divided into 2 by the golden dividing point. Above the sea was a towering volcano with the blazing sun spewing out. In front of the volcano, a Tang sword and a lance crossed each other. As for the general's flag, the design of the military flag was shrunk and placed in the upper left corner of the general's flag. In the center of the general's flag was a red background, and a huge Luo character was entrenched in it, fluttering in the wind. The setting of the general's flag meant that the army that passed the trial could not change its soldiers in large numbers, nor could it change its general. Otherwise, the trial would be invalid. This was because the characteristics of the army were realized through the flag. If the flag was there, the characteristics would be there. If the flag was not there, the characteristics would disappear. It was that simple. Military flag, 2nd Division after equipping, increases troop morale by 50. General's flag, 2nd Division after equipping, increases troop combat power by 20. The characteristics of the military flag were the same, which was to increase troop morale. The characteristics of the general's flag mainly depended on the general. It would show different characteristics according to the general's incapability. Taking this opportunity, Ouyang Shua held a simple flag awarding ceremony. He personally awarded the general's flag and the general's flag to the 2nd Division's commander, Luo Shirshin. From now on, these 2 flags would represent the 2nd Division's highest honor. The division would have a flag bearer, who would be responsible for carrying the flag. If the person was there, the flag would be there. If the person was not there, the flag must be there. At this point of the 4 promotion tasks, Shanghai County had already completed 3 of them. There was only one task left, a recruit talents. So far, there was still no progress. As long as Ouyang Shua wanted to, Shanghai County could be promoted to a first-class county city at any time. Ouyang Shua, of course, was not satisfied. Since the beginning of the game, he was the only lord in the world who had reached the rank of Marquis. No one would come out to compete with him. There was no hurry. He would wait for a few more days. Perhaps there would be a turn for the better. After the flag awarding ceremony, Luo Shirshin took the opportunity to present the little white wolf to Ouyang Shua. "This is..." Ouyang Shua took the little white wolf and asked puzzledly. Luo Shirshin briefly described what happened in the trial space. "I saw that this little wolf was born extraordinary, so I brought it back and presented it to the Marquis." Ouyang Shua nodded and said with a smile, "Shirshin, thank you." Then he checked the little white wolf's attribute. Name: White Wolf, Spiritual Beast. Level: Skills: Psychic, can communicate with all wolf attributes. Charm, confuse the opponent through appearance. Combat power. Evaluation: Legend has it that the White Wolf is the royal family of the Wolf clan. It is the descendant of the Wolf God and has a supreme status in the wolf pack. All the wolves in the world submit to it. Commanding all the wolves in the world? This little guy's background is not small. What was even more strange was that the white wolf's level and combat power were both unknown. There was nothing. Ouyang Shua speculated that it might be because the little white wolf was still in its infancy stage. Ouyang Shua did not hesitate and immediately used the savage animal taming technique on the little white wolf that he had never used before. After failing several times, he barely succeeded. A system notification sounded in his ear. System notification. Congratulations to player not have clothes for taming the spiritual beast white wolf. Reward 500 reputation points. As expected, the little white wolf did not automatically become a territory guardian beast like the Nyen beast. This meant that compared to the Nyen beast, the white wolf was still a little inferior. After all, the Nyen beast had the blood of the Qilin. After everything was done, Ouyang Shua brought the little white wolf back to Shanghai County. Xianyang City, Shanghai County Office. On this day, a father and daughter walked in front of the office's courtyard. The father was already over 50 years old and had an extraordinary bearing. It was obvious that he had been in a high position for a long time. The daughter was no longer young. She was a middle-aged woman, graceful and elegant. "Father, is this the place?" "That's right. That's great." The woman's joy was beyond words. To be continued. Chapter 291. The next day, a system announcement resounded throughout the world. World announcement. Congratulations to player Jack Dawson of the United States for becoming the second Lord to be promoted to Marquis in the world. You will be given the title of Liberty Marquis, and you will be rewarded 15,000 reputation points. You will be rewarded accordingly in your city. After Ouyang Shua, there was finally a second lord in the world who was promoted to Marquis. This meant that the fight for the number 1 county was no longer a one-man show for Ouyang Shua. Shanghai County had yet to be promoted, giving Jack Dawson's Liberty County a chance. If Jack Dawson did not care about the completion rate and hurriedly completed the 2 missions, he might very well take the honor of being the world's number 1 county before Shanghai County. Ouyang Shua could not be sure if Jack Dawson would disregard everything for the honor of being the world's number 1 county. After all, Jack Dawson had lost a county at the county level even though he had the upper hand. Now that he had lost, his desire for victory must be even stronger. He could not tolerate another loss. Ouyang Shua was the world's number 1 county. The Western lords had been suppressing their anger for a long time. They swore to regain their right to speak and not let Ouyang Shua's eastern territory outshine others. If Jack could take the title of world's number 1 county, then all the gloominess would vanish. For a moment, Ouyang Shua was in a dilemma. Should he pursue a 100% completion rate, or should he choose to preserve the honor of being the world's number 1 county? Regarding this question, the alliance of mountains and seas was divided. Siege Lion, Swan and Song Wen supported preserving the honor. The reason was that it would increase the sense of honor and help raise the prestige of the alliance of mountains and seas in the China region and even the world. More importantly, Ouyang Shua had taken the world's number 1 town and the world's number 1 county. If he did not continue to work hard and take the honor of being the world's number 1 county, it would easily cause criticism. This was how people were. When you won glory for the country, they would naturally be full of praise and would want nothing more than to praise you to the heavens. At the same time, they were also forgetful. Once you lost glory, then criticism and abuse would come like a tide, drowning you, pulling you down from your pedestal and wantonly whipping you. They would not care about the glory you had won before. Although Song Wen and the others' understanding was biased, it was still very profound and not without reason. Bai Hua, Feng Qiuhuang, and Dragon-Seeking Acupoint all supported the idea that completing the quest was their number 1 priority. Honor was just an empty title. Obtaining a tangible reward was the wisest choice. After all, Shanghai County had already made a name for itself in the world. The honor of being the #1 county in the world wouldn't add much to Shanghai County's glory. Why should they give up the real benefits for the sake of fame? Both sides had their own arguments, causing Ouyang Shuo to be placed in an even more difficult position. Frankly speaking, Ouyang Shuo naturally hoped to achieve 3 consecutive championships in one go. But rationally, he was more inclined to agree with Bai Hua and the others. In his previous life, he had never heard of a lord completing 4 quests at the same time and achieving a 100% completion rate. Thinking back to the village-building mission that he had just entered the game, it was not hard to imagine that the mission reward would be very generous. There might even be some hidden unique reward. How could he not be tempted? The only variable was the mission to recruit historical figures. There were simply too many uncertainties. Ouyang Shuo firmly believed that with the characteristics and popularity of Shanghai County's territory, it was impossible for it to not attract historical figures to join it. The key was time. Ouyang Shuo had to make a decision. He could not have his cake and eat it too. In the end, Ouyang Shuo decided to ignore Jack Dawson and focus on completing his own quest. Just as Ouyang Shuo decided to give up on the fight for glory, the system played a huge joke on him. On the 5th day of the 12th month of the first year of Gaia, only 2 days had passed since Jack Dawson was conferred the title of Marquis of Liberty. Wei Ran and her daughter, Wei Lan, arrived at Shanghai County through the Shanghai County office in Xianyang City. Who was Wei Ran? She was a veteran of 3 dynasties in the Qin Kingdom and the Lord of Martial Peace Bai Qi. When she heard that Bai Qi had become a general in Shanghai County, she specially came to seek shelter. Firstly, she wanted to become an official in Shanghai County. Secondly, she wanted to help her daughter, Wei Lan, reunite with her husband. There was no doubt that historical figures had their own relay system with the support of Gaia. Otherwise, with all the players' territories being built in the wilderness, without accurate information, how could these historical figures choose where to become officials? They could not just let a blind cat run into a dead mouse. The popularity of the territory came into play through this hidden relay system. The higher the popularity of the territory, the faster the information about the territory would reach the ears of the various historical figures. Wei Ran was a person with a strong desire for power. After the Battle of Chongping, she automatically joined the game process and descended to the main plane. Previously, he had been gathering information from all sides, preparing to find a good next target. Bai Qi was placed in an important position in Shanghai County. Finally, Wei Ran made up her mind to become an official in Shanghai County. Coupled with his daughter, Wei Lan, there was no reason not to choose Shanghai County. Name: Wei Ran, King level. Title: Duke of Rang Dynasty, Warring States, Qin. Identity: Official of Shanghai County. Occupation: Civil official. Loyalty: 75 Commander, 50 Martial Power, 48 Intelligence, 72 Politics, 75 Specialty. Proficient in both literature and martial arts. Increases security of the territory by 25%. Discerning Eye increases talent development rate of the territory by 10%. Assessing the situation increases work efficiency by 15%. Evaluation: The Marquis of Rang is wise and adaptable. He relied on the Empress Dowager internally and assisted Prince Zhao externally. 4 times he ascended to the position of Prime Minister, and then he was conferred the title of Governor. Destroy Qi, scratch Chu, break Wei, besiege Liang. Once a man speaks, he dies of grief and indignation. Wei Ran's arrival made Ouyang Shuo ecstatic, sweeping away the haze in his heart. The scene of Bai Qi and Wei Lan's reunion was not as sentimental as he had imagined. Bai Qi was an iron-blooded man. Even though he was reunited with his wife, he could not lose his usual calmness. Upon closer inspection, a trace of tenderness could be seen in Bai Qi's eyes. With Zisu's help, Wei Ran lived in the official district, which was next to Bai Qi's general's mansion. As for the official positions, They would have to wait until the territory was promoted to the next level. Under Ouyang Shua's instructions, there were only 3 or 4 outstanding scholars who had migrated to Shanhai County from Quanzhou for the Mazu Temple Fair. Under the instructions of Ouyang Shua, the administrative office did not assign specific positions to them. After settling everything, Ouyang Shua rushed to the conference hall to prepare for the promotion of the territory. Ouyang Shua opened the control panel of the territory and clicked on the promotion of the territory. He heard the sound of a system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player not say you have closed. All 4 promotion tasks have been completed. Do you want to promote the territory? Yes. The territory's stone tablet rose, and a golden ray of light soared into the sky. It exploded in the sky, turning into a golden halo that spread in all directions. The halo extended to the new border of the territory before disappearing again. System notification. Congratulations to player not say you have close for promoting the territory to a level 1 county city. The county level lord's mansion has automatically been promoted to a county lord's mansion. Please check for yourself. At the county city, there were no more basic buildings for the lord to randomly select. Everything was built by the territory itself. Immediately after, a series of system announcements rang. System announcement. Congratulations to player not say you have close for becoming the first lord of the China server to promote to a level 1 county city. The reward is 4,400 merit points. The merit points reward at the county city stage was double that of the county lord stage. However, for Ouyang Shua's noble title, it was just a drop in the bucket. As soon as the announcement was made, the China server was in an uproar. All the players were witnessing another highlight of the China server. As expected, right after the system announcement, the world announcement rang out. World announcement. Congratulations to player not say you have close for becoming the first lord of the China server to promote to a level 1 county city. The reward is 8,000 merit points, 10,000 reputation points, and the title of the number 1 county in the world for the Shanhai County. World announcement. Congratulations to player not say you have close for completing the 4 territory promotion quests. The completion rate is 100%. The reward is a special building, a library. At this point, Ouyang Shua was lucky enough to win 3 championships in a row, becoming the undisputed overlord of the entire world. As soon as the world announcement was made, the whole world fell silent. The Western world was dead silent. Ouyang Shua's strength made the Western lords feel suffocated. No one paid attention to the library. Everyone's eyes were focused on Ouyang Shua's grand achievement of 3 championships in a row. Jack Dawson shouted in the world announcement, "Congratulations to not say you have clothes." To be able to become a feudal lord, there was no one who was narrow-minded. Even if they lost, they had to lose with grace. "Thank you," Ouyang Shua replied in a friendly manner. After dealing with the miscellaneous matters, Ouyang Shua finally had time to check the territory's stats. Territory, Shanhai Territory Lord, the Marquis of Lianzhou, not say you have clothes, 2nd rank Marquis, title, World's number 1 county, increases territory popularity by 50, title. The Land of Martial Arts, increases the physical fitness of territory residents by 20, governing place. Shanhai City, level 1 county city. Governing population 100,000/500,000 refugee respawn rate. 501 plus 50 equals 750 refugees per day. Territory area 50,000 square kilometers. Territory characteristics. Slight political index. 75 out of 100 determines administrative efficiency, relates to popular sentiment. Economic index. 68 out of 100 determines trade prosperity, relates to tax revenue. Cultural index. 70 out of 100 determines education development, relates to the quality of residence. Military index. 78 out of 100 determines military strength, relates to stable relationships with subordinate counties. Beihai County, Chiushui County, Yi County Financial Institution. 4 Seas Bank Territory Chamber of Commerce. Chui's Chamber of Commerce, Hechuan Chamber of Commerce Territory Association. Textile Association, Fishery Association, Territory Special Products. Lianzhou 3 Flower Wine, Colorful Silk, White Tea Special Building. Library, Hidden Building. Mazu Temple, Recruitment Hall, Yellow Emperor Temple. List of basic construction buildings. Frowny Face Barbican. One of the main defensive facilities of the city, a small semicircular or square city built outside the city gate for protection. Construction requirement: 50,000 units of green bricks, 10,000 units of stone materials. Construction time: 20 days. Art Academy. The official office in charge of painting. Apart from painting all kinds of paintings, it is also responsible for the identification and arrangement of paintings, as well as the training of painting students. Construction requirement: high-level painter, architectural drawings of the Art Academy, 10,000 units of wood, 10,000 units of green bricks, 8,000 units of stone materials. Construction time: 15 days. Distribution center. The central area where goods are distributed and gathered. Construction requirement: 20,000 units of wood, 40,000 units of green bricks, 20,000 units of stone materials. Construction time: 15 days. Compared to the county city, there were some new changes in the territory attributes interface of the county city. Firstly, the territory and the administrative center were separated, and the two were no longer mentioned together. After the county city, the territory management would become more complicated. The focus of management would no longer be limited to the headquarters, but the construction of the subsidiary territories was equally important. The administrative center was where the territory capital was located. In the case of the Shanghai territory, apart from the administrative center, Shanghai City, there were 8 counties under the Blind Prefecture, which far exceeded the size of Shanghai City. Therefore, it was somewhat inappropriate to use Shanghai City to represent the territory. As the pace of territory expansion accelerated, this situation would become more and more obvious. Secondly, the 3 attributes of a Blind Prefecture County, a financial institution, and a territory chamber of commerce were added, which meant that the territory management had entered a higher level. The upper limit of the population of a first-class county city was directly increased by 5 times, reaching 500,000. Even with the strong territorial characteristics of Shanghai City, it would take a year and a half to reach the upper limit again. What did this mean? It meant that after the county city, if the territory wanted to achieve rapid development, it would have to plunder people from outside. It would take a long time to rely on refugees. It was precisely because of this that Ouyang Shua implemented the strategy of breeding poisonous insects in the Lianzhou Basin. The purpose was to store enough population in the Lianzhou Basin in preparation for the promotion of the territory. Along with the upper limit of population, the territory area also increased. It occupied 1/5 of the land in the Lianzhou Basin, which meant that Yongye County, Guangshui County, Yishui County, and Gushan County would officially be under the jurisdiction of the territory. After the county city, the number of basic buildings decreased abruptly. There were only a pitiful 3 new basic buildings. Among the 3 buildings, the Barbican was a necessary facility for the construction of the outer city wall. The Art Academy was also simple. Just like the Chess Academy, it could be built directly in the Southwest University China Hall. The only condition was that one had to spend 2,000 gold coins to purchase a blueprint of the Art Academy. Of course, the prerequisite was that there must be at least one high-level painter. This was easy. Among the scholars who immigrated from Chuanzhou, there were ready-made painters, so Ouyang Shua did not need to worry. Lastly, the distribution center symbolized the transformation of Shanghai City from a self-sufficient city to a central city. Its influence began to spread to the surrounding prefectures and counties. Finally, there was the library rewarded by the system. The library was designated by Ouyang Shua to be inside the Southwest University China Hall. It would serve as the library of the Southwest University China Hall. As for the specific attributes, Ouyang Shua did not have the time to check them. In any case, it must be extraordinary for the system to take it out as a reward. To be continued. Chapter 292. Following the promotion of the territory, the Marquis of Lian Province's estate also underwent earth-shattering changes. After the promotion, the size of the Lord's mansion had increased by more than 5 times, and it truly had the grandeur of a marquis's mansion. There were no less than 5 rows of courtyards. There was a main gate, a corner gate, a screen wall, a drooping flower gate, and so on. There were also corridors, passageways, halls of all kinds. There were inverted rooms, side rooms, cross courtyards, and bungalows. The area was so large and there were so many courtyards that even the owner, Ouyang Shua, was confused. With the Chuehua Gate as the boundary, Marquis Lianzhou's mansion was divided into 2 parts, the outer court and the inner court. The outer court consisted of the main hall, the Hall of Literary Glory, and the Hall of Martial Meritocrats. The functions of the 3 halls were basically the same as the previous courtyard. Ouyang Shua moved out of the Hall of Literary Splendor and built an elegant courtyard in the outer court as his study. It would also be his office in the future, so he wouldn't have to work together with the other bureau chiefs anymore. In the inner court, other than the courtyard where Ouyang Shua resided, there was also a drill ground specially built for him to practice martial arts. Apart from the Imperial Guard Brigade, the Martial Heroic Palace also had a courtyard for Bai Qi and the other generals to work. As a great general, if Bai Qi was not in the barracks, he would be handling military affairs here. All in all, after the upgrade, the functions of the Lianzhou Marquis' mansion were truly perfect and orderly. After the promotion, the territory was bound to set off a military and political revolution. In terms of military affairs, following Bai Qi's appointment and the establishment of the 3 great divisions, there will not be any major changes for the time being. At most, there will be the establishment of the City Guards Brigade and the Special Forces. The key was the adjustment of the political structure. That afternoon, Ouyang Shua summoned the 3 directors, Fan Zhongyan, Tian Wenjing, and Cui Yingyu, for a meeting. The location of the meeting was Ouyang Shua's study. After the secretary, Lang Bai Nanpu, poured tea for the 3 directors, he tactfully left the study and waited outside the door. He knew that this meeting was unusual. What puzzled Bai Nanpu was that among the 5 directors, Go Hongliang, the director of military affairs, and Shen Jue, the director of the resource reserve, had not received an invitation to the meeting. If it was said that Go Hongliang, who was half a member of the military, did not participate in this meeting, it would be understandable, but why was Shen Jue not allowed to participate? Did Chief Shin receive the cold shoulder from the Marquis? Bai Nanpu shuddered, not daring to think any further. Ouyang Shua didn't know in the slightest that his actions had been analyzed by the secretary in countless versions, and even if he knew, he probably wouldn't have the mood to pay attention to it. Marquis, what do you think? Tell me your thoughts on the future political structure of the territory. Fan Zhongyan and the other 2 were mentally prepared for this. They knew that every time the territory was upgraded, the Marquis would spend a lot of money. What was different was that the Marquis did not directly propose the reform plan this time. Instead, he wanted to hear their opinions. If the Marquis wanted them to speak, they had to speak, and they had to come up with a way to do it. Otherwise, how could they be worthy of such a high position? Fan Zhongyan was the first to speak. This humble subject believes that the first step in adjusting the political structure is to separate Marquis Lianzhou's manor from Shanghai City. This will highlight the central authority of Marquis Lianzhou's manor and clarify the relationship between subordinate. Before, county and marquis. Of Lithe marquis. Under the same government. After the advancement, Shanghai City would only be the administrative center of the territory. It would be inappropriate for them to mix together like this. If the Lian Province Marquis Mansion and Shanghai City are separated, then what is the relationship between Shanghai City and Tianfeng County and the other subsidiary territories? Ouyang Shuo asked. Since we're going to separate, we need to do it thoroughly. We need to change the term subordinate. This lowly subject suggests that we implement a three-tier system of governance: prefecture, and county, in order to clarify the relationship between subordinates. Ouyang Shuo's eyes lit up. Tell me more. The entire Shanghai territory can be divided into a county. Let's call it Shanghai County. The Marquis Manor is equivalent to the military governor's office. It controls the military and politics of Shanghai County. Below Shanghai County there will be several prefectures. In the west, with Tianfeng County as the center, there will be Tianfeng Prefecture. It will be governed by Yongye and Guangshui counties. In the central region, with Shanghai City as the center, the Shanghai Prefecture or the Capital Magistrate Prefecture could be established. The administrative center would be Shanghai City, and the Blind Pool District and Yi District would be under it. In the east, Yi and Gushan counties will be governed by county. What about Beihai County? Yu asked. Beihai County is located outside of Lianzhou Basin. It has a unique location and can be governed by itself. Ouyang Shuo nodded. I agree with Sven's plan, but I need to add 3 points. Firstly, the territory's next strategic goal is to unify Lianzhou Basin. Therefore, the administrative planning should be based on the Lianzhou Basin, and the entire Lianzhou Basin should be designated as Lianzhou County. Secondly, since Tianfeng County will be governed by Tianfeng Prefecture, it should be renamed Tianfeng City, and so on. Thirdly, it's not suitable to have too many prefectures in a county. 4 is the most suitable. In the future, Lianzhou County will be divided into 5 prefectures. Therefore, Beihai County can be renamed Beihai City. It will be governed by the Marquis Manor, but it will not be governed by itself. Marquis is wise. Fan Zhongyan said sincerely. Please decide on the name of Shanghai Prefecture. Let's call it Shanghai Prefecture. Ouyang Shuo did not bite off more than he could chew. Yes. After Fan Zhongyan finished speaking, Tian Wenjing stood up and said, I have an idea about Shanghai Prefecture. Ouyang Shuo knew that Tian Wenjing was usually a man of few words. Once he spoke, he would definitely have a good plan. Shanghai City, Pool Water County, and Yi County are 3 cities. They are located at the south of Lianzhou Basin and are very close to each other. Moreover, the bridge connecting the 3 cities has been completed. Rather than saying 3 cities, it's more like a giant city. Therefore, I suggest that we remove Pool Water County and Yi County and merge the 3 cities into one. We will call it Shanghai City. Only such a giant city is worthy of being the territory's administrative center. Tian Wenjing's words were indeed shocking. Ouyang Shuo nodded. Tian Wenjing's idea coincided with his original plan for the 2 subsidiary territories. Only such a giant city was worthy of being the capital of a country in the future. Alright, let's go with Yangon's plan. The 3 of them discussed and basically solved the structure of the territory. The remaining work would naturally be handled by the administrative office. Ouyang Shuo's idea did not stop there. He continued, other than the restructuring of the counties, the structure of the Marquis residence of Lianzhou should also be adjusted. Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing looked at each other and shuddered. Their political senses were very sharp. They immediately linked this matter to Shen Zhui's absence. As expected, Ouyang Shuo wanted to make a move on the Resource Reserve Department. He said, after being promoted to a county, the existence of the Resource Reserve Department is no longer suitable. It's time for it to die. I have decided to officially disband the Resource Reserve Department. The Salt Field Department, Resource Department, and Carriage Department will be placed elsewhere. The Salt Field Department will be under the jurisdiction of Beihai City. The Northern Sunset Salt Field will also be under the jurisdiction of Beihai City. The profits will be handed over to the Finance Department. Ouyang Shua's decision to release the biggest contributor to the territory's finances, the Northern Sunset Salt Field, was a sign of confidence. The era where the Northern Sunset Salt Field supported the territory's finances independently was gone. The Resource Department will be disbanded. The logging and quarries will be placed under the jurisdiction of the local government. The mining field will be placed under the jurisdiction of the Military Affairs Department. The granary and Wolf Mountain Mine will be placed under the jurisdiction of the Finance Department. The rest of the resources will be given to the merchant. The Carriage Department will be disbanded. The Storm Valley Military Horse Farm will be placed under the jurisdiction of the Military Affairs Department. The Carriage Department and the Pier will be placed under the jurisdiction of the Finance Department. At the same time, the Carriage Department and merchant ships will be released. Merchants will be allowed to invest. Ouyang Shua's adjustments not only streamlined the organization, but also further liberalized the territory's intervention in the economy. He further expanded the scope of investment and stimulated the development of the private sector. The entry of Hechuanji Chamber of Commerce and Chui Family Chamber of Commerce was an opportunity. At this point, the territory's government affairs were centered around the Administration Department, the Interior Department, and the Finance Department. The Finance Department's authority was further strengthened in this round of adjustments. After confirming the political structure, the next step was the most crucial personnel adjustment. Ouyang Shua had already appointed Wei Ran as the magistrate of the Shanghai Prefecture. There was nothing to discuss. What needed to be arranged was the former Zhao Dexian and Zhou Haichen of Yuyu County. The magistrate of Tianfeng Prefecture was a focal point. The current Tianfeng County magistrate, Zhao Duong, would definitely not be able to take on this responsibility. Someone else had to be selected. Next was the arrangements made by Shen Jue and the others after the Resource Reserve Department was disbanded. Does anyone have any recommendations for the magistrate of Tianfeng Prefecture? Ouyang Shua asked. Fan Zhongyan and the others looked at each other. This kind of personnel arrangement was too sensitive. They did not want to be involved. Marquis Holy Judgment. Why? Just say it, just say it. Ouyang Shua did not want to let them off so easily. What about Shen Jue? Tian Wenjing asked. Shen Jue could be considered as half his student. Now that he had been relieved of his position, he still wanted to find a good job for Shen Jue. Ouyang Shua shook his head and said, Shen Jue still needs more experience. He is not strong enough to take on the government affairs. Let him be the Yongye County magistrate. Although Ouyang Shua thought highly of Shen Jue, he did not want to spoil him. Fan Zhongyan looked at Chui Yingyu strangely and said, I recommend the Yishui County Magistrate, Chui Shaoxi. Fan Zhongyan's suggestion was interesting. Everyone knew that Chui Shaoxi was Chui Yingyu's cousin. If it was really adopted, the Chui siblings would be in high positions. In addition to the branch of the Chui Family Chamber of Commerce, the Chui family's influence in the territory would be different. They would become a powerful force. The meaning behind it was really subtle. Chui Yingyu raised her eyes and looked down. She did not move an inch. Ouyang Shua smiled, as if he did not see the meaning behind it. He said, County Magistrate Chui has managed Yishui County well. He is suitable to be the magistrate of Tianfeng Prefecture. It is decided. Yes. At this point, the general situation had been decided. All that was left was the specific personnel arrangement. To be continued. Chapter 293. The next day, the manor of Marquis Lianzhou issued an official document announcing the appointment and removal of relevant personnel. Wei Ran became the magistrate of Shanghai Prefecture and took charge of the central region of the territory. Cui Shaoxi moved to the right and became the magistrate of Tianfeng Prefecture and took charge of the western part of the territory. Gu Xiuwen became the magistrate of Beihai City and took charge of the coastal region. Cui Shaoxi's promotion even alerted the Cui family in Dali. The local officials paid more attention to Wei Ran and Bai Qi, the father-son-in-law pair. Their influence in the territory's military and political affairs was shocking. At the county level, Shen Jue, the former head of the Resource Reserve Division, was transferred to the Yongye County Magistrate. Zhao Dexian, the former Pool Water County Magistrate, was transferred to the Guangshui County Magistrate, and the former Yi County Magistrate, Zhou Haichen, was transferred to the Yishui County Magistrate. Among the three districts, Yishui County had the greatest development potential because of the integration token. Cui Shaoxi's promotion was a clear proof of that. Moreover, it was guarding the eastern gate of the territory, so its strategic position was very crucial. Therefore, among the three county magistrates, Zhou Haichen's career was the most promising. During Zhou Haichen's tenure as the magistrate of Yu County, he often faced threats from nomadic tribes, so he was more vigilant. This was also one of the main reasons why Ouyang Shua chose him to be the magistrate of Yishui County. In addition, Zhou Haichen was a professional, so his future was limitless. Du Xiaolan, the former Director General of the Supplies Department, was transferred to be the Director General of the Finance Department. The former Director General of the Chariot Department, Zheng Shanpao, was transferred to be the Commanding Officer of the Storm Valley Military Horse Farm. The former Assistant Director General of the Supplies Department and Commanding Officer of the Wolf Mountain Mine, Yuan Xiaoping, resigned from his position and continued to be the Commanding Officer of the Wolf Mountain Mine. Zheng Shanpao and Yuan Xiaoping were both talented officials, and it was difficult for them to advance in the bureaucracy. Now that they each focused on their own industry, it could be said that they were doing well. Fan Zhongyan was quite dissatisfied with Du Xiaolan's appointment. Du Xiaolan and Qian Lifei were both Cui Yingyou's students. If the two of them were to work in the finance department at the same time, it would be suspicious of them forming a clique. Thus, Fan Zhongyan objected. Ouyang Shua believed that Yingyu would have a sense of propriety and overrule Fan Zhongyan's suggestion. On the morning of the 6th of December, Ouyang Shua summoned Wei Ran, the magistrate of the Mountain Sea Prefecture, to discuss the establishment of the magistrate government. Because it involved the division of authority between the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion and the Mountain Sea Prefecture, Fan Zhongyan and the other two division chiefs participated together. After the merger, Shanghai City was divided into three major districts: Shanghai District, Pool District, and Friendship District. The Shanghai Prefecture was located in the Shanghai District, which was also the main district of Shanghai City. The government agencies left behind by the Pool and Friendship counties were reorganized into district-level government agencies with the same level as the county-level agencies. After the establishment of the Mountain Sea Prefecture, some of the functions and powers that were originally under the jurisdiction of the Marquis of Lian Province had to be delegated. Firstly, the construction authority of Shanghai City. The overall planning of Shanghai City was handled by the Construction Department of the Administrative Department, while the specific construction and detailed planning were handled by the Shanghai Prefecture. Secondly, Shanghai City's Cultural and Educational Authority. The Southwest University China Hall and the Temple of the Yellow Emperor were under the direct jurisdiction of Marquis Lianzhou's mansion. The private schools, and temples in Shanghai City were all under the jurisdiction of Shanghai Mansion. Thirdly, the responsibility of managing the refugees in Mountain Sea City would fall under the jurisdiction of the Mountain Sea Prefecture, and the corresponding basic welfare would also be provided by the Mountain Sea Prefecture. The Civil Affairs Department of the Internal Affairs Department would be responsible for coordinating the population of the Mountain Sea Territory. Fourth, Shanghai City's public security. The Shanghai District's core area was under the responsibility of the Imperial Guard Brigade. Shanghai City's external defense was under the responsibility of the newly formed City Guard Division. Shanghai District's inner city was under the responsibility of the Public Order Division of the Internal Affairs Department. The remaining areas were under the Shanghai Prefecture's responsibility. Fifth, Shanghai City's Tax Collection Authority. Shanghai City's taxes would be handed over to the Shanghai Prefecture, and the Shanghai Prefecture would then hand over a certain percentage to the Finance Department. The industries under the Finance Department's Industrial Department would still be under the jurisdiction of the Industrial Department. What followed was a series of personnel changes. Marquis Lianzhou's mansion's authority had been delegated to the Shanghai Prefecture, so a portion of the administrative staff would be transferred to the Shanghai Prefecture to strengthen the structure of the Shanghai Prefecture. The scholars who migrated from Quanzhou were also arranged to serve in the Shanghai Prefecture. Ouyang Shuo no longer asked about the specific personnel arrangements, and the 3 division heads and the prefectural magistrate, Wei Ran, worked together to resolve them. With Wei Ran's ability, Ouyang Shuo believed that he would be able to straighten out the relationships between the various parties in no time. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo went to the Southwest University China Hall to check out the library that the system rewarded him with. The library was located by the Full Moon Lake, and not far from it was the newly built lecture room courtyard. Name: Library, type, special building, function, access to all the ancient books in the world, ancient and modern. Characteristic: Territory's cultural index increases by 15. Description: This is a building specially built for the purpose of storing books. The building contains all the ancient books in China, and it can be accessed by students at any time. Ouyang Shuo was enlightened. Wasn't this the equivalent of a modern university's library? Moreover, it was the most comprehensive library in China, containing all the ancient and modern books. Its value was immeasurable. Based on Ouyang Shuo's understanding of the game, he estimated that the books in the library were all ancient books that Gaia had scanned and moved to the library while searching for information in China. It was not hard to imagine how attractive the existence of the library would be to the people of the 100 schools of thought, and how important it would be to elevate the academic status of the Southwest University China Hall. The next step was to choose a building master for the library. Ouyang Shuo immediately thought of one person who was most suitable, and that was Jiang Shang, who lived in seclusion on Fallen Star Island. Ever since his first visit to Jiang Shang, Ouyang Shuo had never set foot on Fallen Star Island again. Even so, Jiang Shang's every move was still within Ouyang Shuo's grasp. Other than taking care of Jiang Shang's daily life, the servants arranged by Jiang Shang's side were also in charge of being his eyes and ears. They would regularly report Jiang Shang's actions to his secretary, Lang Bai Nanpu. After Lang Bai Nanpu sorted out the information, he would present it to Ouyang Shuo in the form of a letter. After living in seclusion on Fallen Star Island, Jiang Shang had never stepped out of the island. Usually, he was either fishing by the lake or leaning on a rock, reading. He was quite carefree. The territory's library was limited, so Ouyang Shuo could only contribute the books that the system had refreshed in his study to Jiang Shang. After all, the number of books was limited, and Jiang Shang had no books to read. Ouyang Shuo was confident that Jiang Shang would not be able to resist the temptation of the library. Once again on Fallen Star Island, Ouyang Shuo's state of mind was different. He no longer hoped that Jiang Shang would become an official in the Mountain Sea Territory. As long as this old man was willing to make use of his influence as a 100 schools grandmaster to recruit talents for the Mountain Sea Territory, it would be fine. That's right, Ouyang Shuo regarded Jiang Shang as a parasol tree that attracted phoenixes. Jiang Shang was leaning on a rock, reading. When he saw Ouyang Shuo, he was not as cold and distant as before. Instead, he asked calmly, "Marquis, what brings you here? Does great-grandfather know that there's a new library by the Full Moon Lake?" Ouyang Shuo did not beat around the bush. When talking to such an intelligent person, apart from grasping his needs, everything else was meaningless. Library? Jiang Shang had never left Fallen Star Island, so naturally, he did not know. That's right, a library that contains all the books from the past to the present. Is Marquis making fun of me? Jiang Shang was somewhat doubtful. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, "I'm not lying. If great-grandfather doesn't believe me, you can go and take a look for yourself." A trace of excitement flashed in Jiang Shang's eyes. Then, he became doubtful and said, "Marquis, such a trick can't trick me out of Fallen Star Island. How can there be such a library in the world? Great-grandfather, there's no need to test me." Ouyang Shuo looked confident. "I'm not here to ask great-grandfather to become an official. Instead, I hope that great-grandfather will become the owner of the library." The temptation of books was incomparably great. Jiang Shang was prepared to take a risk. "All right, I'll believe you this time and follow you out of the island to take a look. If it's really as Marquis said and there's such a library, I won't go back on my words and am willing to be the owner." Ouyang Shuo nodded and pretended not to understand Jiang Shang's meaning. "Please." Jiang Shang did not tidy up and directly followed Ouyang Shuo on a small boat out of Fallen Star Island. When he arrived at the library, Jiang Shang was already somewhat convinced. When he saw the tens of thousands of books in the library, he was already intoxicated and unable to extricate himself. "Great-grandfather, how are the books here? As vast as the sea." Jiang Shang muttered to himself and then said, "Don't worry, Marquis. I won't go back on my words." Ouyang Shuo nodded and left the library alone. From then on, the library gained a legendary old man and a caretaker with a terrifying background. After coming out of the library, Ouyang Shuo turned and went to the School of Architecture. On the way, he happened to meet Sun Xiaoye. "Ouyang, how come you have time to come to the school?" Sun Xiaoye teased, a trace of imperceptible excitement flashing in her eyes. Ever since Sun Xiaoye came to the territory, Ouyang Shuo was either fighting outside or inspecting everywhere. Even if he stayed in the territory, he would spend most of his time in the Marquis' mansion, discussing matters with a group of officials. "I came to take a look and casually stroll around." "Come on, great lord, you still have the mood to stroll around? Tell me, what's the matter? Maybe I can even help." Sun Xiaoye speechlessly looked at the man in front of her. One look and it was obvious that he did not mean what he said. Ouyang Shuo was thick-skinned and said nonchalantly, "Is Elderly here? I'm looking for him." "You're looking for the dean? Don't tell me it's to discuss the planning of Shanghai City?" Smart. Ouyang Shuo could not help but admire Sun Xiaoye's sharp mind. "Of course," Sun Xiaoye said with a proud face, "let's go, I'll take you there." She turned around and led the way with Ouyang Shuo behind her. On the way, Sun Xiaoye talked about the planning of the city. Actually, the school has already started the preliminary design of Shanghai City. "I just don't know if it matches your vision." Ouyang Shuo nodded. No one was a fool. In Elder Li's office, Ouyang Shuo met with Elder Li and explained the integration plan of Shanghai City's Trinity. "How generous," Elder Li said with emotion. "It seems that the plan will have to be restarted. Thank you for your hard work, Elder Li." Ouyang Shuo was somewhat ashamed. Sigh, to be able to preside over the planning and design of such a large city, this old man is very fortunate. There's no need to talk about hard work. Elder Li was somewhat excited and full of energy. "Then I'll wait and see." Ouyang Shuo was not pretentious. To be continued. Chapter 294. According to Old Li, the overall plan would have to wait until after the new year. Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment and said, "Can we design the city wall first?" "Why?" Old Li was puzzled. The city wall is the core of the plan. It takes a lot of time and labor. There are still 4 months before the spring sowing. I hope to finish the city wall before the next spring sowing. Not bad. Oldly nodded with satisfaction and praised Ouyang Shua's action of cherishing the people's labor. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Oldly sighed with emotion. I will immediately gather the students and work through the night. I will try to come up with the city wall design within a week. Ouyang Shua cupped his hands. Thank you. The two discussed the design requirements and specific requirements of the city wall. Unknowingly, the sun was already setting. Ouyang Shua stood up and left the office. Let me see you out. Sun Xiaoye chased after him. The two of them walked on the shady path, looking at each other in silence. Neither of them wanted to break this rare silence. Perhaps it was just like the old saying, silence is better than words. Ouyang. Sun Xiaoye wanted to say something before leaving. What's wrong? Forget it, it's nothing. Sun Xiaoye said dispiritedly. She turned back first with a flustered footstep. A cool breeze blew past, stirring up ripples in one's heart. Ouyang Shua looked at Sun Xiaoye's receding figure and sighed with a melancholy expression. It was dinner time when he returned to the manor. In the courtyard, Binger had already finished school and was playing with Whitey. Whitey was the white wolf that Luo Shixin gave her. It was very close to Binger and was inseparable, even when she went to school. Ouyang Shua suspected that Binger had some kind of psychic talent. Why did all the spirit beasts get close to her? No matter if it was the Nian cub or Heya, there was no exception. Brother, you're back. Binger ran over. During this period of time, the little girl's rebellious phase seemed to have passed. She had become a lot more obedient, which made Ouyang Shua very happy. Yes. The brother and sister chatted and laughed as they walked to the side hall for dinner. After advancing to the county capital, Ouyang Shua's busy state continued. Every day, he was busy meeting with the officials and generals to discuss the territory's military and political affairs. The affairs of a prefecture were complicated. Although Ouyang Shua had already set the general tone and the specific government affairs would be handled by the 3 divisions, there were still some matters that required him, the Lord, to personally make decisions. Officials who were transferred to another post would always come to the Marquis Lian Manor to bid their farewells to Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua naturally couldn't be disrespectful to these important ministers that guarded his territory, and he would personally receive every single one of them and instruct them in order to calm their hearts and strengthen their will. Fortunately, Ouyang Shua's energy became more and more abundant as he cultivated the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. After discussing politics in the day, he could still stay in the study alone at night and write at a great speed, planning for the next step of the territory's development. Ouyang Shua's busy schedule made the ladies in the mansion feel sorry for him. Song Jia even specially came back from the sect once and personally instructed Zi Su to prepare supper every night and send it to the study room. On December 9th, Ouyang Shua summoned by Qi and Zhao Si. The Shanghai County's City Guard Brigade was reorganized into the 3 divisions, and Zhao Sihu suddenly became a commander without an army. These days, he was busy with the military office's recruitment, and when he was summoned by Ouyang Shua, he hurried over. During the Battle of the Evil Lion Ridge, Zhao Sihu's military leadership skills made Ouyang Shua look at him in a new light, and he specially gave him the secret manual 5 Tiger Saber scripture as a reward. After 2 months, Zhao Sihu had already grasped the basics, and his body faintly emitted the might of a ferocious tiger. How is the recruitment going? Is it going well? Ouyang Shua asked. It's going well. Everyone is very enthusiastic about joining the army. The physical qualities of the territory's youths are also very good, and those who come to the recruitment basically meet the requirement. Zhao Sihu was somewhat excited. Ouyang Shua nodded. The various territorial characteristics of the Shanghai territory were gradually showing their power, and this was their foundation. After the small talk, Ouyang Shua began to get to the main topic and said, "I called the two of you here for two matters." Zhao Sihu cupped his fists and said, "Please enlighten me, Marquis." To be honest, Zhao Sihu had no idea about the position of the City Guard Brigade, and he didn't know what the Marquis was thinking. It was naturally more than he could ask for the Marquis's advice. First, it's about the establishment of the Shanghai City Guards. I'm thinking of forming a City Guard division, and the deadline will be half a year. What do the two of you think? Zhao Sihu was the person involved, so it wasn't appropriate for him to express his opinion. However, he was secretly excited. He didn't expect that the Marquis would make an even bigger move after dissolving the 3 City Guard Brigade. Bai Qi nodded and said, "With the future scale of Shanghai City, a City Guard division is definitely not much." Just as Bai Qi said, Shanghai City was the heart of the territory, so how could it not be heavily guarded? Although Ouyang Shua didn't think that anyone would be able to attack Shanghai City, it would be an invisible deterrent and guarantee of safety. If not, how could the people of Shanghai City be pacified? Ouyang Shua wasn't someone who was eager for quick success, and he wouldn't be militaristic or recklessly expand his army. The half-year deadline was to give the territory a buffer so that it wouldn't be too much of a burden on the territory's economy. After the 3 cities were merged, the number of refugees that spawned every day would reach 1,310, and the population would increase by 40,000 in a month. This was because the merging of the 3 cities was only Ouyang Shua's wishful thinking, and it wasn't recognized by the system. Therefore, when calculating the upper limit of the population, the 3 cities were still calculated separately. Although the City Guard Division will be built from scratch, I hope that the City Guard Division's combat power and military quality won't be weaker than the 3 major divisions. As for how they will be trained, the two of you will be in charge. Even with Zhao Sihu's courage, he was put in a difficult position when he heard the Marquis's request. It was common knowledge that for a new army to have real combat power, apart from daily hard training, actual combat was also very important. It could even be the key to success or failure. Based on the territory's situation, the 3 most threatening areas were each garrisoned by a field division. No matter how they rotated, it wouldn't be the City Guard Division's turn to enter the battlefield. Why, is there a problem? Zhao Sihu gritted his teeth and said, "I'm a boorish man, so I'll just speak the truth. If it's just training, I'm not afraid of anyone, but if it's actual combat, I can't guarantee anything. I'm afraid that I'll ruin the Marquis's plan." Ouyang Shua nodded and turned to look at Bai Qi. He asked, "What solution does the great general have?" "The only way is to have the City Guard Division be stationed in the 3 major divisions' camps in rotation and participate in actual combat," Bai Qi said without hesitation. "All right, we'll do as you say. The formation of the City Guard Division will be commanded by the Great General, and Zhao Sihu will be in charge of the specific execution." Ouyang Shua made the final decision on the command. The Great General Bai Qi became Ouyang Shua's right-hand man, and he was in charge of almost all the specific military affairs in the territory. The military office, on the other hand, was overshadowed by Bai Qi, and gradually became a logistics department. A general like Bai Qi wasn't suitable to be in charge of the military office, and the battlefield was his home. Ouyang Shua's original intention of establishing the military office was to effectively check and balance the generals in the army and form a kind of balance. Otherwise, the generals in the army would be like runaway horses, and it would be easy for them to get out of Ouyang Shua's control. Unfortunately, due to the lack of a capable leader, the military office had always been half dead, and he was very disappointed. Following the continuous expansion of the territory's army, Ouyang Shua no longer had the energy to personally participate in the specific formation of the army like before, and could only delegate the power to the generals. The evil consequence of this was that his control over the army had weakened. Fortunately, the brigade commanders of the 3 major divisions were basically his old subordinates, and there wouldn't be any problems in the short term. Ouyang Shua put aside his thoughts and continued, "The City Guard Division's barracks will be moved to the outer city. The barracks in the core area will be vacated for the Imperial Brigade." Zhao Sihu nodded. He had long expected such a day would come. The City Guard Division and the Imperial Brigade had different positions, and it was decided that the two armies would be in charge of the outside and the inside. It was only a matter of time before the core area was handed over to the Imperial Brigade. When the Marquis of Lianzhou and the Mountain-Sea Prefecture divided the security areas, the foreshadowing had already been laid down. The Imperial Brigade was another trump card for Ouyang Shua to control the army. As long as this most elite army was firmly in his hands, he would have the confidence to face any challenges. When the major divisions had stabilized, it would be time for the Imperial Brigade to expand. Gaia's first year, 12th month, recruit barracks in the western suburbs. Of the 3,250 participating soldiers, excluding those who died in the Battle of Chongping, there were 2,470 elites left. They were about to face the first round of assessment. The subjects of the assessment included the 5-kilometer weight-bearing run, parallel bars, 400-meter steeplechase, and push-up. During the recruit training period, all the soldiers had been repeatedly trained in the relevant subjects and were no longer unfamiliar with them. The crux of the assessment was whether the soldiers could reach the standards set by the instructors. According to statistics, the soldiers participating in the selection were all rank 8 elite soldiers and above, and rank 10 elite soldiers accounted for more than 10% of them. They could be called the strongest elites of the territory's army. Ouyang Shua came to the recruit barracks to witness the entire assessment process, and Bai Qi accompanied him. According to the instructor's captain, Viper, Bai Qi's entry into the recruit barracks had given them a lot of inspiration. Some of the assessment standards were more reasonable under Bai Qi's suggestion. After a day of assessment, only 1,845 soldiers passed, and the elimination rate reached 25%. The eliminated soldiers would return to their original units. At the end of the assessment, the mission of the Western Suburbs recruit barracks was completed, and it would be dismantled the next day. The soldiers who passed the assessment would be transferred to the established training base to undergo a new round of devilish training. Inspired by the modern training model of the recruit barracks, Bai Qi had already started to compile the Army's training program and the Army's code of conduct, and was prepared to implement it throughout the Army. To be continued. Chapter 295. To the north of the 100,000 Mountains, at the junction of Lingnan and Guangxi provinces, there was a place called Wuzhou. Half a year ago, a mysterious tribe suddenly appeared in the originally barren Wuzhou. Under the leadership of the tribe leader, they cut their way through the thistles and thorns, wiped out the roving bandits, built a city, built a stronghold, and planted fields. The leader of the stronghold was a very impressive figure and enjoyed high prestige among the mountain barbarians. With the establishment of the stronghold, the mountain barbarians nearby heard the news and rushed to the stronghold to see the mysterious leader. The hundreds of mountain barbarian tribes that had lived in the 100,000 mountains for generations had since found a new home. One after another, the tribes began to migrate to the stronghold of Wuzhou without a trace of hesitation. As time passed, the 55 mountain barbarian tribes in the northern area all migrated to Wuzhou. Even the largest tribe of 10,000 people was no exception. Last month, the wave of migration began to spread to the southern area. With the influx of mountain barbarians, the stronghold expanded again and again, finally developing into a giant city that dominated Wuzhou. On top of the stronghold, the black phoenix flag fluttered in the wind, spreading its wings and flying. Seeing that it was almost winter, the weeds withered, birds disappeared, and the wilderness presented a scene of desolation. Located in the southern bay of Guangxi, the Lianzhou Basin had obvious characteristics of a marine monsoon climate, but it had no fate with winter. Entering December, the temperature remained over 20 degrees Celsius. The Lianzhou basin seemed calm, but in fact, undercurrents were surging. According to the feedback from the Military Intelligence Department, the tribes of the grasslands had stopped their civil war, and there were signs of secret cooperation. Under Bai Qi's instructions, the 2nd Division frequently appeared in the grasslands under the name of training to intimidate the tribes and try to sow discord and draw them to their side. The western part of the Tianji tribe's town had been rebuilt. Adding the eastern part and the Khan's personal guards, the total strength reached 12,000 people, which was equal to the 2nd Division. The 7 medium-sized tribes each had no less than 3,000 troops, which added up to more than 20,000 people. Before the war, the grasslands tribes could issue a temporary assembly order. With the nomadic tribes' tradition of all citizens being soldiers, it was not difficult to double the size of the army. If the grasslands tribes really united, the 2nd Division alone could not suppress them. Duanren County in the east was also worrying. Limited by Ba Dao's title, Duanren County could not be promoted to a third-class county. The strength of the Mountain Sea territory made Ba Dao restless. In order to protect his territory, he could only take risks and seek instant benefit. Ba Dao contacted the Yan-Huang alliance as he furiously built up his territory. Apart from the 3 first-class subsidiary territories, the other 9 second-class subsidiary territories had all been completed, and they were steadily advancing towards a first-class county. The most direct benefit was that the population of the territory was increasing day by day, creating conditions for the expansion of the army. In addition to the soldiers from the mountain barbarian tribes and the funds provided by the gold mine, Duanren County's military strength was growing day by day. The size of the army had reached a division, which was comparable to the previous Shanhai County. If Ba Dao was walking on a tightrope, then Ouyang Shua was playing with fire. Duanren County's current development was not unrelated to Ouyang Shua's deliberate indulgence. After taking over Tianfeng County, it wasn't that Ouyang Shua didn't have the opportunity to take over Duanren County. It was just that he didn't want his gu breeding strategy to be stillborn, so he gave up and allowed Duanren County to continue. If he didn't restrain himself, he might be nurturing a tiger and inviting calamity. What worried Ouyang Shua the most was the unexpected event that occurred in the depths of the Grand Myriad Mountains. A large number of mountain barbarian tribes were migrating to the depths of the mountains. Lung Qian, the leader of the 1st Military Intelligence Group of the Military Intelligence Division, who was in charge of the Eastern Region's intelligence, had personally led a team into the depths of the mountains to investigate. Ouyang Shua had a premonition that an old enemy was staring at him from the depths of the mountains. Just as a storm was brewing in Lian Prefecture Basin, an old man quietly arrived at Shanhai City. The old man was in his 50s. He had a wide forehead, a round face, eyebrows, and a mustache. He was dressed very simply in coarse hemp clothes and wore a green headscarf. His scholarly elegance exuded a sense of awe-inspiring dignity. After entering the city, the old man toured around the city with great interest. He couldn't help but secretly nod when he saw the prosperous scene of the commercial street and the orderly life of the common people. Soon after, the old man walked into the Southwest University China Hall and met a scholar who was walking toward him. The scholar cupped his hands and said, "Dare I ask, this old man has heard that there is a library in your noble city. May I know where it is?" The young scholar was a student of the Southwest University China School of Scripture. Seeing the old man's ancient greeting, he didn't dare to be negligent and quickly returned the greeting. "The library is built by the Full Moon Lake. Let me take you there." Ouyang Shua had already said that the library would never be secretive and would be open to everyone in the world. Therefore, people like the old man who asked for directions were not rare in the Southwest University China Hall. "Thank you." The young scholar brought the old man to the library and turned to leave. The old man walked into the library. He looked a little excited and a little nervous. He was none other than the war sage, Sun Wu. Later generations respectfully called him Sun Tzu. Together with the two sages, Confucius and Laozi, they were known as the three brightest stars in the world of thought in the late spring and autumn period. Sun Wu and the library master, Jiang Shang, had a deep relationship. Firstly, Jiang Shang was respected as the founder of the school of militarism, and Sun Wu was the representative of the school of militarism. Secondly, Jiang Shang was the founder of the Qi kingdom, and Sun Wu was a person from Qi kingdom. Tracing back to the source, the two of them had a deep relationship. Therefore, after learning that Jiang Shang was the library master, Sun Wu immediately made use of the system's mysterious relay station and traveled thousands of miles to Shanghai City to pay a visit to Jiang Shang. Strictly speaking, the war sage, Sun Wu could be considered half a hermit. Before the age of 30, Sun Wu lived in seclusion and wrote Sun Tzu's Art of War. After that, he served as a general in the Wu kingdom for more than 20 years and achieved outstanding military service. After that, he retired and lived in seclusion again to revise his book on the art of war. Throughout his life, he was a legendary figure. The Hundred Schools Grandmaster Jiang Shang and the war sage, Sun Wu, the two sages, crossed time and space and met in the library. "Greetings, great-grandfather." Sun Wu performed a disciple's greeting. Jiang Shang leaned to the side and borrowed a famous saying from the Analects of Confucius to cleverly redefine the relationship between the two of them. "Isn't it a good thing to have a friend come from afar?" When the two grandmasters of the school of militarism met, they unconsciously started to talk about the art of war. The more they talked, the more they felt like they had met earlier. Unknowingly, the sun had already set. Jiang Shang turned his head and looked out of the library, lost in thought. The setting sun illuminated half the sky with the reflection of the lake. Although it was already sunset, the red light still shone brightly. He sighed and said, "It's enough to meet a bosom friend in life. I'm extremely fortunate." Sun Wu was also satisfied and had a joyful expression. "How about it? Are you willing to come with me to the island?" "Of course, I don't dare to ask." The two of them laughed as if they were old friends reuniting. There was no need to say anything. Following Jiang Shang to the Fallen Star Island, Sun Wu admired the beautiful scenery of the lake and mountains. He said in admiration, "Such a rural atmosphere, it's a wonderful place to live in seclusion. Great-grandfather is blessed." Jiang Shang shook his head and said with a melancholy expression, "It's all thanks to Marquis Lian Province's good intentions." Sun Wu revealed an interested expression and said, "The Shanghai territory is famous in the circle. When I entered the city just now, I casually looked around. It's indeed a well-deserved reputation. Great-grandfather is living in seclusion here. What do you think of this Marquis Lian Province? Why, do you want to become an official here?" "No." Sun Wu shook his head and said, "I have no interest in a military career. I'm willing to learn from great-grandfather and become a hermit. If great-grandfather doesn't mind, I'm willing to live on the island and write books and revise the books of war. I heard that there are more than 10,000 books in the library, and I want to read the later generation's art of war to gain inspiration and make up for my shortcomings. Isn't it a waste for such a great talent to live in seclusion on a small island? Isn't it the same for great-grandfather? I'm different from you. I have a knot in my heart with Marquis Lian Province, so I'm not willing to become an official. Even so, it's hard for me to refuse the great kindness of the book repository master." Jiang Shang said calmly. Sun Wu was silent. After pondering for a long time, he said firmly, "I'm still willing to follow my heart. Rushing to the battlefield with vigor is no longer my pursuit. Carrying forward the art of war is my lifelong wish." Jiang Shang nodded and said, "Of course, it's up to you. This matter can't be forced. I estimate that Marquis Lian Province will come to visit you tomorrow and invite you to become an official. It doesn't matter. I have my own plans. This person is quite broad-minded. He can't be considered an ordinary person. Don't refuse him immediately. Sun Wu's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Jiang Shang to have such a high evaluation of this Marquilian province. He smiled and said, "After hearing great-grandfather's words, I really want to see it. You won't be disappointed. Moreover, Bai Qi has already been appointed as the Marquis Mansion's general. There's an interesting training system in Shanghai City's army. I'm sure you'll be interested in it." As expected of great-grandfather Jiang, he knew everything in the world without even going out. As they chatted, the two of them talked about the art of war and had a long talk during the night. The next day, Ouyang Shua received a secret report from the Fallen Star Island's servant. It said that a guest in his 50s arrived on the island yesterday. He wore a plain robe and had a long talk with great-grandfather Jiang. After Ouyang Shua read the secret report, he was inwardly excited. If he wasn't wrong, the 100 schools of thought had finally been officially launched. A person who could talk with Jiang Shang through the night was definitely not an ordinary person. "Come." "Yes." "Go and invite General Bai Qi." "Yes, sir." Ouyang Shua planned to bring Bai Qi along to visit this mysterious person. He hoped to use Bai Qi as a ready-made example to prove that it was possible to become an official in the Shanghai territory. "Marquis." Bai Qi hurried over. "Come with me to the library." "Oh? Did someone come?" Bai Qi's mind was sharp, and he immediately guessed the reason. Bai Qi could be considered as one of the representatives of the militarists. When Jiang Shang was appointed as the head of the library, Bai Qi took the time to visit him. The two of them had an exchange on the art of war and had a very congenial conversation. "Not bad. In that case, I'd like to take a look." Chapter 296. In the library by the full moon lake, Jiang Shang and Sun Wu had a long talk last night and had become close friends. When they saw Ouyang Shua and Bai Qi coming to visit, they smiled at each other. "Greetings, great-grandfather." Jiang Shang nodded and pointed at his companion. "This is Sun Wu." Ouyang Shua's heart trembled and he hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, war sage." Bai Qi, who was following behind Ouyang Shua, saw the grandson of a military grandmaster and hurriedly bowed. Sun Wu bowed. "This old man has taken the liberty to come and trouble master to come personally. Thank you for your hospitality. The gates of Shanghai City are always open to the world's talent." Ouyang Shua said flatteringly. "Mr. has come from afar. I have prepared a house for you in the official district as a token of my sincerity. I hope you will not refuse. Marquis, I appreciate your kindness. Unfortunately, I have no interest in the military and only wish to live in seclusion and accompany great-grandfather on Fallen Star Island. I hope Marquis will agree." Sun Wu refused. Ouyang Shua's eyes narrowed and he sighed. "Shanghai City does not force talent. Everything is voluntary. If Mr. wishes to live in seclusion, I will not interfere. It is just a pity." He still had this bit of magnanimity. Ouyang Shua's straightforwardness was beyond Sun Wu's expectations. He immediately had a good impression of him. "Thank you, Marquis. May I ask if Mr. wants to live in seclusion to revise Sun Tzu's art of war?" "Yes." Sun Wu was calm. "Revising the art of war to promote the military doctrine and pass it on to future generations?" "Yes." Sun Wu's eyes narrowed. Ouyang Shua nodded and suddenly changed the topic. "Mister, what do you think of the Southwest University China Hall? The concept is advanced and educates people." Sun Wu's eyes flashed with a trace of suspicion. "In that case, there is a better place for Mr. to live in seclusion. Please consider it. Please speak." "There is an empty space next to the Southwest University China Hall that I have prepared for another school. To govern a place, one must have both civil and military skills. The Southwest University China Hall is a holy land for civil officials, and the other school is a cradle for generals. The Marquis is wise. Sun Wu was confused and asked, "But, what does this have to do with my seclusion?" Ouyang Shua explained, "The planned school is also known as the Army's Martial Lecture Hall. It is an educational institution for the training of army generals, and also a place for military strategists to study martial arts. The Army's Martial Arts Lecture Hall will be divided into infantry, cavalry, engineers, as well as supply and logistics, and will be divided into 3 classes, A, B, and C. Class A and Class B will focus on military subjects after entering the academy, such as topography, city construction, weaponry, military systems, hygiene, and so on. They will also learn military courses, such as the military manuals, rules, and orders of the military. Class C will first learn general subjects and basic military courses, such as Chinese, ethics, machinery drawing, arithmetic, history and geography, infantry drill, military service orders, and so on. After that, they will learn military subjects and basic military courses according to their specialties. After Ouyang Shua finished speaking, Sun Wu remained silent for a long time. Even Jiang Shang and Bai Qi were entranced by the story. This was especially true for Bai Qi. He was previously in charge of reorganizing the 3 divisions and knew the weakness of the territorial army. Most of the generals in the army came from the wilderness. If they could build such a martial arts lecture hall, it would undoubtedly be a great undertaking. Sun Wu was silent because the book he wrote, The Art of War, basically included all the courses in the martial arts lecture hall. It was an excellent place to spread military theories. Not only that, he could also use the Army's martial arts lecture hall as a platform to practice and perfect his theories. Jiang Shang looked at Ouyang Shua with a complicated expression, then turned to Sun Wu and said, "Chongqing, as the Marquis said, the Army's martial arts lecture hall is indeed more suitable as a place for you to live in seclusion. Not only that, I promise that once the Army's martial arts lecture hall is completed, I will build another floor and transfer all the books related to the art of war from the library to the Army's martial arts lecture hall." Ouyang Shua threw out another bait. Sun Wu laughed bitterly and said, "The Marquis is indeed amazing. I admit that you have convinced me." Ouyang Shua was overjoyed. Suddenly, he heard the sound of a system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player not wearing anything for successfully persuading the Saint-Tier historical figure, Sun Wu, to come out of seclusion in the Shanhai territory. Special reward: 3,000 achievement points, 15,000 reputation points. Immediately after, there was a series of system notifications. System notification: War Sage Sun Wu has officially settled in the Shanhai territory. Triggering 100 schools of thought, school of the military branch. Military characters will appear in the wilderness one after another. Players, please explore on your own. When the announcement was made, the world was in an uproar. The silent national channel suddenly became lively and was instantly flooded with messages. Boss not wearing, please accept my knee. There's no need to explain a valiant life. Boss not wearing is mighty and domineering. Why are all the benefits taken by not wearing? I, Zhao Ritian, am not satisfied. Previous poster appraisal complete. Brother Not Wearing's fan club is recruiting. Interested parties please contact Sister Ruhua. Ruhua, why did you come out? Go home and take your medicine. Brother Not Wearing's fan club is recruiting. Interested parties please contact Sister Farong. Blurg, I'm throwing up. Idiots, wait to kneel and lick my boot. After Sun Wu, Wu Qi will definitely be mine. Old Wang is mighty. Hello everyone. I'm Boss Not Wearing's little brother. My name is Take Off the Windbreaker to Dry Chick. Previous poster, your name is really fresh and refined. I'm impressed. Brother Not Wearing, your domineering aura has conquered this little sister. Please serve me in bed. The adventurer players did not care about the matter. They were happy to complain and watch the commotion. Ouyang Shua had long since become the most dazzling star among the players of the China server. Everyone was used to him unleashing his ultimate moves from time to time. The feudal lords felt a little uncomfortable. Among the 100 schools of thought, the school that the feudal lords valued the most was the school of the military. The representatives of the school of the military, be it Sun Wu and Sima Rongzhu during the spring and autumn period, Sun Bin, Wu Qi, Wei Liao, Zhao Shi, Bai Qi during the Warring States period, or even Zhang Liang and Han Xian during the early Han dynasty. They never thought that the brightest star of the school of the military, the war sage Sun Wu, would settle down in the Mountain Sea territory so quickly. How could the other feudal lords not beat their chests and stomp their feet? If the other feudal lords knew that Bai Qi was also a general in the Mountain Sea territory, it would probably cause another wave. Apart from jealousy, the feudal lords were also incredibly excited. The system announcement was very clear. Aside from Sun Wu, who had settled down in the Mountain Sea territory, Sun Bin, Wu Qi, Wei Liao, and Zhao Shi were all incredibly powerful figures. Jingdu District, Handan County. Di Chen sighed softly. The joy of subduing Lian disappeared after Ouyang Shua's torment. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, "What a fearsome opponent." However, Di Chen will not admit defeat so easily. The best part is yet to come. That's what makes it interesting, isn't it? Beside Di Chen, besides Handan County's top tactician, Peerless Elegance, was also the leader of Unparalleled Sword of Sword Qi, one sword from the west. After a few rounds of discussion, Handan County and Unparalleled Sword of Sword Qi finally reached a strategic alliance. Xiangyang District, Danyang District. Lord Chunshin was also in the back garden of the feudal lord's mansion, entertaining a special guest. He was the leader of 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud, Swallow Li San. Among the top 10 guilds in the China region, 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud had the most connections with the territory. Their members were all general players. As the adventure-type players leveled up and their equipment was upgraded, they gradually caught up with the equipment of the territory's regular army. Their battle power could not be underestimated. The adventure-type players had already passed their infancy stage and were beginning to step onto the big stage. A new round of shuffling was quietly underway. Just like the cooperation between Mountain Sea City and Snow Rose, guilds and territories naturally complemented each other. Both sides had a strong foundation for cooperation. When the two worked together, they could display the effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. Feudal lords with good foresight, such as Di Chen and Lord Chunshin, once again took the lead. As for those feudal lords who were slow to react, by the time the adventure-type players truly showed their prowess, the big cake had already been divided up. The strong were always able to advance their influence before the world changed, leading the trend of the times. As for the weak, they could only go with the flow and complain about the fickleness of the world. Lord Chuanshin's foresight was extremely unique. His family was based on business, and the majority of its members were related to business. In terms of political and military talents, he could not compare to Di Chen and War Wolf. He could not even compare to Xiongba. Thus, in order to make up for this shortcoming, Lord Chunshin chose 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud from the top 10 guilds. Similarly, 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud, because of their profession, had a high demand for equipment. They naturally hit it off well with the wealthy Danyang district. When Swallow Li San heard the system announcement, he said mockingly, "That master is really restless. Who doesn't want this kind of restless life?" Lord Chunshin laughed at himself. In the Battle of Chongping, he had finally subdued Zhaoque after many twists and turns. But compared to Di Chen's subdued Lianpo, he was still a notch below. Now that not wearing had caused such a ruckus, he felt even more bored. Jianyi District, Qi Shui District. In front of War Wolf sat a middle-aged general, not angry but imposing. When the middle-aged general heard the system announcement, he said with a smile, War Saint Sun Wu. I really want to see him. How can an antique from thousands of years ago compare to you, teacher? War Wolf was full of confidence. In his heart, his teacher's ability to command in battle was comparable to any historical general, perhaps even better. Hey, you can't say that. The middle-aged general waved his hand and said, Sun Tzu's art of war is enough to guide modern warfare on a strategic level. How could it be easy? Especially in the game, you can't underestimate these historical generals in this kind of pure cold weapon warfare. Teacher is too modest. 10,000 changes do not deviate from the original. I still feel that an army trained by modern science is stronger than an ancient army. War Wolf persisted in his opinion. The middle-aged general shook his head, declining to comment. To be continued. Chapter 297. Ouyang Shua, of course, did not know that the outside world was in turmoil. He calmly checked Sun Wu's personal attribute. Name, Sun Wu Saint. Title, War Saint Dynasty. Spring and Autumn, Qi. Identity, Principal of Shanghai City Army Martial Arts Hall. Occupation, Special General. Loyalty, 65 points. Commander, 100 Martial Power, 75 Intelligence, 95 Politics, 80 Specialty. Classic, Sun Tzu's Art of War. Evaluation, Sun Tzu was from Qi, and his name was Wu. He wrote 13 chapters on the art of war for King Wu Helu. He was a woman and became a general. He defeated Chu in the west, entered Ying, and conquered Qi and Jin in the north. The ancient saying of war, no one came from Sun Tzu. The balance of advantages and disadvantages, the coexistence of the strange and the righteous, the battle, the defense, the attack, the encirclement, there are hundreds of them. After checking Sun Wu's attributes, Ouyang Shua was both happy and worried. As expected of a saint-level historical figure, Sun Wu's attributes were very strong. He had no shortcomings in any of the 4 attributes. The low commander attribute was a terrifying 100 point. Unfortunately, Sun Wu only chose to settle in Shanghai City and did not want to become a general. Therefore, he was not subdued. His loyalty was very low, and his specialties could not be displayed. He could not bring any bonus to the territory. After Sun Wu agreed, Ouyang Shua immediately established the Army Martial Arts Hall Preparation Committee to be responsible for the construction of the Army Martial Arts Hall. The entire preparation work was divided into 2 parts. One was the construction of the hardware facilities, and the other was the construction of the software facilities. Needless to say, the hardware facilities were the construction of the campus. Because of the experience of building the Southwest University China Martial Arts Hall, Ouyang Shua was reassured to hand over this work to the construction department and the School of Architecture. The only difficulty was that the construction of the Army Martial Arts Hall coincided with the construction of the outer city wall. Ouyang Shua could only reluctantly give up and instructed the construction department to make the construction of the Army Martial Arts Hall their first priority. The software facilities were more complicated. The first thing was the construction of a teaching staff. The entire Army Martial Arts Hall could not be supported by Sun Wu alone. They needed a strong team of instructors. The Army Martial Arts Hall had 4 sections: infantry, cavalry, engineers, and logistics. Each section needed a section chief. Topography, city construction, weaponry, military system, hygiene, and other military courses also required corresponding instructors. There were also basic courses such as Chinese, ethics, machinery drawing, arithmetic, history and geography, infantry drill, and service orders that also required instructors. Sun Wu was the principal of the Military Force Lecture Hall. At the same time, he was also the section chief of the infantry division. He was responsible for teaching weaponry and military tactics. The Divine Strategy Battalion's battalion commander, Wang Yuanfeng, was relieved of his post and became the chief of the engineering department, responsible for teaching the basics of tool drawing. After Wang Yuanfeng was transferred out of the Divine Strategy Battalion, Ouyang Shuo removed the Divine Strategy Battalion's independent organization and transferred it to the City Guard Division, becoming a direct subordinate force of the City Guard Division. Core member of the Falling Moon Society, Cartographer 9-Line, as a topographical instructor, Elder Qian, the Deputy Director of the Official Medical Bureau, as a hygiene instructor. Instructors for the 4 basic courses of Chinese, ethics, arithmetic, and history and geography were recruited from Southwest University China Hall. The instructors of the 2 basic courses, infantry drill and military service orders, were selected from the Special Forces members who had been eliminated. They had received strict infantry drill and military service training in the recruit camp in the western suburb. The 2 vacant section chiefs and many instructors could only be recruited from the outside. Ouyang Shuo was also reluctant to transfer too many active generals to the Army Martial Arts Hall. Ouyang Shuo informed the various royal city offices and ordered them to spread the news that the war sage Sun Wu had established the Army Martial Arts Hall in Shanghai City. This was to attract talents to join the Army Martial Arts Hall. In addition, Sun Wu also used his great influence as a military grandmaster to gather military scholars to work in the Army Martial Arts Hall through special channels. After all, Sun Wu's original intention was not to train generals for Shanghai City, but to study the military theory and carry it forward. Other than the team of instructors, Ouyang Shuo gave Sun Wu full authority to design the school system, curriculum, and a series of other tasks. The establishment of the Army Martial Arts Hall tempted Jiang Shang. Using the opportunity of chatting with Sun Wu, he would give some of his opinions and suggestions from time to time. With Jiang Shang and Sun Wu taking the lead, Ouyang Shuo naturally wouldn't display his slight skill in front of an expert. On the other hand, Ouyang Shuo contacted Black Mamba, the leader of the Rattlesnake mercenary group, and invited him to send some members to work in the Army Martial Arts Hall. After receiving Ouyang Shuo's invitation, Black Mamba couldn't help but sigh. As expected of the most troublesome territory in the China region, the Special Forces hadn't even taken shape yet, but he had already established the Army Martial Arts Hall. Although Black Mamba was emotional, he was still very tempted by Ouyang Shuo's proposal. Not to mention the generous rewards that Ouyang Shuo promised, many people were willing to work in the Army Martial Arts Hall just for the sake of the war sage Sun Wu. The cooperation between Shanghai City and the Rattlesnake mercenary group began to enter the honeymoon period. With Shanghai City's deep foundation, the framework of the Army Martial Arts Hall was finally set up. Ouyang Shuo didn't ask about the rest of the work and left it to the preparatory committee. Ouyang Shuo's gaze shifted to the other territory lords in the Lianzhou Basin. With the establishment of the Tianfeng Prefecture, the 20 small territory lords in the west of the Lianzhou Basin were in an awkward situation. The Tianfeng Prefecture's jurisdiction extended to the Central Wilderness in the north, Guangshui County in the east, the Evernight Forest in the south, and the Sila Lake in the west. In fact, more than half of the territory under the jurisdiction of the Tianfeng Prefecture didn't belong to the Mountain Sea Territory. The territory sandwiched between Tianfeng City, Evernight County, and Guangshui County was occupied by more than 20 territory lords. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo's actions were extremely overbearing, like a dove occupying a magpie's nest. Under Ouyang Shuo's instructions, the 1st Division, which was stationed in the western barracks of the city, launched a series of operations to suppress bandits in the territory of the Tianfeng Prefecture, announcing that the area was now under the jurisdiction of the Mountain Sea Territory. On the other hand, it was really strange that the 1st Division turned a blind eye to the territory of the players under its jurisdiction. For a moment, the territory lords were in a dilemma. If they fought, they couldn't defeat them. If they fled, they couldn't bear to give up the territory they had painstakingly built up. The strange behavior of the 1st Division gave the territory lords a glimmer of hope. Perhaps the Marquis of Lianzhou was magnanimous and didn't intend to use force against them? Of course, the territory lords knew that this was just the thinking of an ostrich. The First Division didn't use force against these territories, but as long as it was a territory bordering the Mountain Sea territory, they wouldn't be so polite and would annihilate it easily. Therefore, when the Mountain Sea city was promoted again, it would be the time for them to suffer. It wasn't that Ouyang Shua didn't know the dilemma of the territory lords. After the reorganization of the First Division was completed, he planned to completely solve the problem of the territory of the players in the West. According to the opinion of the First Division's commander, Shi Wansui, they should be completely wiped out to avoid future troubles. As a territory lord, Ouyang Shua couldn't give up the strategy of breeding parasites that he had previously formulated just for a moment of pleasure. After all, the population limit of a first-grade county city was 500,000. After it was promoted to a second-grade county city, it was unknown how much the population limit would increase. Relying on the spawning of refugees was really not enough to satisfy Ouyang Shua's appetite. The wool comes from the sheep's back. These players' territories were the best breeding grounds for the population. However, after the establishment of the Tianfeng prefecture, Ouyang Shua couldn't tolerate these territories having their own army. If he didn't care about anything and let things run their own course, they would be a bunch of ticking time bombs. The previous surprise attack on Evernight Town was a wake-up call for Ouyang Shua. At the end of the day, they were the territory lords. No territory lord was willing to sit still and wait for death. Cornered dog would jump over a wall. After weighing the pros and cons, Ouyang Shua thought of a solution. On the 12th of December, 23 territory lords in the western part of the Lianzhou Basin received an invitation from the Marquis of Lianzhou, He Wui. He invited them to Shanghai City on the morning of the 15th to discuss important matters. The invitation also vaguely mentioned that if any territory lord didn't come to Shanghai City on that day, it would mean that they looked down on the Marquis of Lianzhou, and the First Division of Shanghai City would personally visit their territory. This strongly worded invitation caused a huge uproar in the western region. The territory lords were in awe and trepidation. They didn't know what the Marquis of Lianzhou was going to do. Could it be that he was going to secretly ambush them and kill them? In their eyes, this was a feast at Hongmen through and through. What made them helpless was that even if they knew it was a feast at Hongmen, they didn't dare to not attend. The threat of the First Division was real, and they couldn't ignore it. On the contrary, some of the territory lords felt a lot more at ease. In their opinion, instead of hanging around like this, it was better to make things clear and come up with a plan. Even if they were to die, they should die in peace. That way, they wouldn't have to live in fear and worry all day long. There were also some territory lords who were indignant and exposed the contents of the invitation on the forum, causing another wave of uproar. The players of the China region became excited. A few days ago, Shanghai City had just made a big move, and they didn't expect it to create another big news. The players had different opinions, and there were all kinds of comments. The Marquis of Lianzhou has shown his ambition to dominate Lianzhou. He Wui is a bandit. He doesn't deserve to be the player representative of the China region. The Marquis of Lianzhou has subdued all the territory lords with a single word. The king's domineering aura is beginning to show. China advocates using virtue to subdue people. It's not the behavior of a gentleman to use force to suppress people without clothes. The Marquis of Lianzhou has suddenly shown his sword. A storm is coming in the China region, and a drastic change is coming. Using force to bully the weak, he's a real villain. If he's so capable, go and fight the foreigners. The weak are prey to the strong. It's the law of the jungle. How can he be without clothes? We support you. How can he be without clothes? Everyone has the right to punish him. In addition to making comments, some players also wrote long posts on the forum, analyzing the deeper meaning behind the invitation. Among them, Bai Xiaosheng's post was the most profound and almost hit the nail on the head. Bai Xiaosheng predicted that as the only county-level territory in the world, Hao Wui unexpectedly chose to solve the problem through negotiation when he had the ability to annihilate the surrounding territories. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the problem. He predicted that after the territory was promoted to a county-level city, some new changes must have happened. The most likely change was a sharp increase in the population. Otherwise, Hao Wui wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. Bai Xiaosheng even asserted that after the food crisis, the population would become the next target of contention for the various territory lords. A chaotic period of war was about to begin. Bai Xiaosheng's prediction caused a wave of uproar in the forum. Some adventure-type players even vowed that the spring of adventure-type players was about to arrive. To be continued. Chapter 298. Ouyang Shua only smiled at the debate on the forum. Ouyang Shua didn't mind, but that didn't mean the others didn't. Even the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance were shocked by Bai Xiaosheng's prediction. They hurriedly sought confirmation from Ouyang Shua. Among the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance, Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang were the most anxious. Their territory had long been promoted to a third-grade county city and was steadily advancing to a first-grade county city. Ouyang Shua naturally wouldn't hide anything. He explained the changes to the county city in detail from the start of the promotion mission so that everyone could prepare in advance. After Ouyang Shua finished speaking, the Alliance channel fell silent. They didn't expect the promotion mission to be so abnormal. After the promotion, the county city had changed so much that they were caught unprepared. Ouyang Shua might have easily completed the 4 promotion missions, but he wouldn't have been able to complete any of them in other territories. Needless to say, it was an almost impossible task. For the Chamber of Commerce to settle in, Shanhai County was only able to establish a relationship with the Chui Family Chamber of Commerce because of Yingyu. It was pure luck. For the cultural festival, it was even more exaggerated. There were no hidden buildings like the Mazu Temple in other territories. The last one, the core trial, looked the simplest, but it wasn't simple at all. The second division was the most elite division in Shanhai County. If they could barely complete it, there was no need to mention the other territories. To put it bluntly, the other territories didn't have a foundation like Shanhai County. Fortunately, other than Baihua and Feng Qiuhuang, the other territories still had a long way to go. They had a long time to prepare. Taking 10,000 steps back, they would be promoted as long as they completed 2 missions. There was no need to be too demanding. Supreme Court District, Lingxi County. The 4 beauties gathered in the backyard and digested the information they had just received. Baihua sighed and said, "The promotion mission of the county city is really despairing. What's there to be afraid of? We'll cross the bridge when we get there," Hongying said casually. Although the territory advancement quests are random, it's still the same. Shanhai City's 4 quests are of great reference value. We can start preparing for them now, Qingyi said. That's right. The Breeze Pavilion in Dali can be in charge of the recruitment of virtuous persons and the entry of chambers of commerce. They are very famous in Dali. Even if they don't look for historical figures, it shouldn't be difficult for them to establish a connection with a chamber of commerce. Okay, I'll write a letter to Big Brother later. Qingyi's analysis gave Baihua some confidence. It shouldn't be a problem to leave the Legion trial to General Zhang Liao. The last cultural festival will require us sisters to plan. Based on Qingyi's analysis, it wouldn't be too difficult for Lingxi County to complete at least 2 missions. Alright. Violet giggled and walked over. She stroked Cyan Yi's head and said curiously, "Tell me, what is little Yao's brain made of? How can it be so smart?" An unsolvable problem, in her words, instantly became simple. "Sister," Qingyi pouted and acted like a spoiled child. Her style suddenly changed. In an instant, she changed from a calm and intelligent female Zhuge to a next-door little sister. Luoyang District, Luofeng County. Compared to Qing, Hong, purplish and white, Feng Chihuang had a much more difficult time. Only after leaving her clan did she truly understand how heavy the burden on her shoulders was. It was so heavy that she almost couldn't breathe. If it wasn't for her strong character and unyielding stubbornness, she might not have been able to hold on. In the blink of an eye, for months had passed since that cruel show of forcing her to abdicate the throne. Under her leadership, Luofeng County regained its vitality. The only flaw was that Lingxi County caught up and replaced Luofeng County's position in the Mountain and Sea Alliance. In the Battle of Chongping, she had used the information she had received to successfully subdue the valiant General Wang Bei. Subduing Wang Bei meant that the army was no longer Luofeng County's weakness. She could now devote herself to the internal affairs of her territory. Apart from that, with Wang Bei, Luofeng County would be able to play a greater role in the next battle. Although she didn't know much about military affairs, she was still very confident in internal affairs. After years of being influenced by what she saw and heard, coupled with her years of experience in the real world, she wasn't someone to be trifled with. Even so, Feng Chihuang didn't have much confidence in the promotion mission. She really wanted to compete with Baihua for the promotion to a rank 1 county city. It wasn't that she had any opinions about Baihua, but as an outstanding female player, she couldn't accept it. I might have to use that hidden chess piece, Feng Chihuang muttered to herself. The next day, Ouyang Shua was listening to the report on the city wall design from the School of Architecture in his study. Old Li's design overthrew the outer city wall that Ouyang Shua had previously planned for Shanghai City. Instead, he used an entire outer city wall that encompassed the Shanghai District, Pool District, and Friendship District, forming a huge city. There was a certain distance between the three cities, ranging from 10 to 15 kilometers. Ouyang Shua had purposely left it as a strategic buffer zone. Now, all of them were surrounded by the city wall. The west side of the outer city wall was the same as the west side of the second city wall in the Shanghai district. The north side of the outer city wall was the same as the north side of the Friendship district. The east side of the outer city wall was the same as the east side of the Pool district. As a result, the entire city wall was 25 kilometers from east to west and 30 kilometers from north to south. It covered an area of 750 square kilometers, which was the size of 9 Tangchong cities. Compared to Ouyang Shua's initial plan of 100 square kilometers of Shanghai City, it was 75 times bigger. Because it had to be connected to the existing city wall, the outer city wall was designed to be 12 meters tall and 6 meters wide. It was very different from Tianfeng City's city wall design. This is crazy. If we don't design it this way, the integration of the three cities would just be empty talk. In the hearts of the commoners, how can we be considered as citizens of the same city if we are not under the same city wall? Old Li's attitude was firm. But Old Li, have you ever thought about it? According to your design, the city will be integrated into one and the area will be large enough, but the city's defense will be weakened? How can such a narrow city wall match the status of the future capital city? Not only that, according to this design, the core area will be at the corner of the city. Once the enemy invades, they can easily attack the Marquis' mansion. Ouyang Shua was a little emotional. Ouyang, don't be too emotional. Sun Xiaoye came out to smooth things over and explained, actually, we've already considered your concerns when we were designing. What do you mean? Ouyang Shua tried his best to calm himself down. If we're talking about the city's defense, the future Shanghai city is indeed not strong. It barely passes. However, a city's defense needs to be evaluated in a larger context. Think about it, the Lianzhou Basin has long been regarded as your exclusive property. It will be yours sooner or later. With the characteristics of the Lianzhou Basin's terrain, Everything will be fine as long as you can see the southern guard pass. No one will be able to attack. If that's the case, is Shanghai City's defense really that important? If the enemy really breaks through the southern guard pass, no matter how thick the city wall is, it will be of no use. But, also, Sun Xiaoye did not give Ouyang Shua a chance to refute and continued, as for the problem of the core area being shifted to the corner of the city, it is just your idea of being the ruler of the city. Think about it, in a modern city, it is very normal for the political center to not be at the center of the city. Ouyang Shua did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why did the idea of being one with heaven and man, the phenomenon of heaven and earth, the emperor as the ruler, and 100 ministers to serve him become the dregs of feudalism in Sun Xiaoye's eyes? Thinking about it carefully, Sun Xiaoye's words did make sense. With the characteristics of the Lianzhou Basin, Ouyang Shua did not believe that anyone could attack the foot of Shanghai City. If that really happened, it would really be the end of the road for him. Ouyang Shua did not expect Sun Xiaoye's strategic vision to be so good. As for himself, he really did live up to the saying, "You don't know the true face of Mount Lu, only because you are in the mountain." Xiaoye, what you said does make sense. Ouyang Shua did not want to lose face. That's for sure. All right, we will build according to this design. How much work will it take? The amount of work is not as exaggerated as you think. Sun Xiaoye reassured Ouyang Shua and said, the outer city wall only needs to be built on 3 sides, with a circumference of 85 kilometers. Excluding the 3 sections of the city wall, the actual length of the construction is only 69 kilometers. The amount of work will be about 4 times that of the second city wall in the Shanghai district. Ouyang Shua nodded and asked, what about the Barbican? Did you take it into consideration? Of course. According to the design, the outer city wall needs at least 20 gates, and the main city gates also need 11 or 12. Every main city gate must be built with a barbican. Apart from that, we will build a water gate at the junction of the Friendship River, Qiushui River, and Canyon River to ensure the safety of the city. Also, in order to facilitate the communication between the 3 districts, we will add at least 7 to 8 bridges across the river. Ouyang Shua's scalp went numb. He waved his hand and said, all right. Xiaoye, you can directly contact the construction department and prepare the detailed project budget and progress plan. Then, coordinate with the finance department to allocate the project funds. At the same time, contact the civil affairs department to conscript the corvée. We must finish building the city wall before the spring sowing next year. Such a huge project would cost a lot of money. Ouyang Shua was thinking of withholding a part of the December revenue for the auction, but now it seemed that it would not be possible. Don't forget, other than the city wall project, there was also the military lecture hall waiting to be built. Me? Sun Xiaoye said with some uncertainty. She was still a little nervous in her heart. Such a huge project would not be easy to coordinate. She was a little unconfident. Yes, it's you, the chief commander of the city wall project. Ouyang Shua naturally had to hand over this important project to someone he could trust. Moreover, Xiaoye was usually a little too lazy, so he had to give her more responsibilities. What? You didn't even ask for my opinion and just casually told me about the task. Sun Xiaoye muttered. What, you don't want to help me? I'll help you. Who's afraid of who? Sun Xiaoye could not be provoked. All right, then it's settled. Ouyang Shua made the decision. After discussing the city wall, Ouyang Shua and Elder Li talked about the overall design of Shanghai City. This was several times bigger than the city wall project. Just the design alone would involve many professions such as architecture, planning, municipal administration, and water conservancy. It would not be completed in a short time. To be continued. Chapter 299. Gaia's First Year, December 15th, Shanghai City. 23 player-level lords of the western region of the Lianzhou Basin gathered in Shanghai City to discuss important matters. No one was absent. Ouyang Shua personally welcomed the lords at the teleportation array. The meeting place was arranged at the main hall. Because it was a meeting between lords, Ouyang Shua did not arrange for Fan Zhongyan and the others to accompany them. The lords were basically still wandering around in the third-class towns, and only a few had been promoted to the first-class county. After seeing the bustling scene of Shanghai City, they could not help but feel a little less imposing. When they entered the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion and saw the dignified and imposing mansion, their imposing manner weakened again. Compared to the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion, their lord's mansion was simply a shabby thatched hut. Only then did they realize how big the gap between their territory and the Mountain Sea territory was. It was the first time for some of the lords to step out of their territory. Previously, they had stayed in their territory and lived a carefree life, so they did not feel proud and arrogant. They thought, so what if Shanghai City was promoted to a county city? They were still lords, so how could the difference be so great? When they saw the prosperity of Shanghai City, they finally understood what it meant to be a frog in a well. The main hall had already been decorated, and maids were shuttling back and forth in the hall, serving wine and fruit platters. After the expansion of the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion, the head of the Internal Affairs Division, Zisu, was instructed by Ouyang Shua to recruit a group of maids and servants to maintain the normal operation of the Marquis Mansion. In such a large marquis manor, just sweeping the courtyard required more than 10 people to be responsible. Because he did not want the atmosphere of the meeting to be too formal, Ouyang Shua specially invited a theatrical troupe to liven things up. To be honest, it was Ouyang Shua's first time seeing a theatrical troupe in his territory, and it was indeed magnificent. Such a scene had already caused the feudal lords to feel dizzy, and they sighed in their hearts. This is the real life of a feudal lord. Their own land is really unsophisticated. Ouyang Shua sat at the head of the table, raised his wine cup, looked around and said with a smile, "Everyone is a guest from afar, and I have prepared some meager wine. Please forgive me for not being a good host. Let me propose a toast to everyone. Cheers!" Cheers! Everyone raised their cups. Regardless of what they were thinking, at least the scene was peaceful and lively. Accompanied by singing and dancing, the lords chatted with each other and drank happily. It was as if they had forgotten the original purpose of this trip and were really just here to attend a banquet. Ouyang Shua shuttled through the hall, getting to know the lords one by one. In response to Ouyang Shua's goodwill, there were some who responded enthusiastically, while others were indifferent. Intoxicated by the wine, an hour had passed unknowingly. When Ouyang Shua saw that the situation was more or less settled, he waved his hand to signal the troupe to withdraw, and the hall fell silent. Fortunately, there was no such thing as getting drunk in the game. The lords' hearts trembled. They knew that the real show had just begun. "Marquis," the lord said. "Marquis and a county and Zhou County, Yen City and County and said. One of the impatient lords said, "Marquis Lian Zhou invited us here. Why don't you just say it? Why don't you beat around the bush?" His tone was less courteous. "All right, brother, you're a straightforward person, so I'll be straightforward. Since the Mountain Sea territory had established the Skywind Prefecture, it could not be removed. The conflict between the Heavenly Wind Mansion and the other territories could be resolved. As long as you agree to a few of my conditions, I can guarantee that your territories will be safe until the Mountain Sea territory's border." The hearts of all the lords trembled. The bottom line that Ouyang Shua had drawn had already made them feel extremely uncomfortable. Haha, Marquis Lian Zhou really knows how to joke. With the speed at which the Mountain Sea territory is developing, it's only a matter of time before it's connected to our territory. No matter what condition you propose, it won't solve the root of the problem. Yeah. Someone followed suit and said, "What's the use of a moment of comfort? We aren't ostriches that can pretend that nothing has happened. Brother, you're straightforward. What if I can guarantee your interests after your territories are occupied? The territory has already been occupied by you. What kind of benefits are there? How can you guarantee our interests? For a time, the hall started to clamor again. Everyone spoke one after another, venting their dissatisfaction. They were all rather agitated. Everyone, quiet down and listen to me. Ouyang Shua pressed his hand down and waited for the hall to quiet down again before he continued. Everyone, listen to my suggestion first before making a decision, right? All right, then tell me, how can you guarantee our interests? Seeing that the fate of their territories being occupied was irreversible, some of the rational lords began to seek for benefits that were one level lower. They no longer blindly jeered. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, there are only two reasons for everyone to play Earth on Lu. First, it's to like the game and enjoy the game. Second, it's to achieve some results in the game, so as to raise your authority level in Gaia's second achievement point evaluation. No one objects to my suggestion, right? That's right. If the territory is occupied, wouldn't everything be in vain? What kind of achievement points are there to speak of? That's right. Wrong. Ouyang Shua shook his head firmly. Wrong? Yes, wrong, Ouyang Shua said slowly. The evaluation of achievement points is not limited to the existence of the territory. If that's the case, how many of the 10,000 lords in the China region will survive in the end? Don't tell me those whose territories are occupied or destroyed don't receive any achievement points. Definitely not. The evaluation of achievement points includes not only territory, but also personal wealth, job level, etc. All of them are within the scope of evaluation. Therefore, the occupation of a territory does not mean the end of achievement point. The lords fell into deep thought and basically agreed with Ouyang Shua's words. Marquis Lianzhou, state your guarantee, said one of the lords named Little Amy. She was also one of the few female lords among the lord. All right. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, as long as everyone agrees to my conditions, I promise that after occupying your territory, you will be allowed to continue living in the Mountain Sea territory. In addition, all the wealth you have previously obtained will be turned into your personal property. I will not take a single cent. This way, you can use this rich wealth to develop in the Imperial City or do business in the Mountain Sea territory. It's all up to your personal freedom. To be honest, I believe everyone knows that managing a territory is extremely risky. The competition between the lords is extremely cruel. Among 100 lords, there might not even be one that survives. Since that's the case, why don't you change to doing business? Not only will you have a stable income, you might even be able to open up a new world. After Ouyang Shua finished speaking, the hall fell into silence. It should be said that Ouyang Shua had shown enough sincerity to move them with emotion and reason. Now it was up to them to decide. Can you tell us your conditions? Asked Little Amy again. Ouyang Shua nodded and said with a smile, of course. Actually, my conditions are very simple. There are only two in total. First, the armies of your territories must be reorganized by Shanghai City, and you are not allowed to recruit new troops. The security of Tianfeng City's territory will be taken over by the 1st Division. Second, the structure of your territories must be adjusted according to the unified structure of the Mountain Sea territory. Of course, Shanghai City will not interfere with the appointment and dismissal of personnel. It's all up to you. The above two conditions are limited to before your territories are occupied. After that, I will have to trouble you to leave your territories and settle down in Shanghai City or other places. Marquis Lianzhou, don't you think you're going too far? Someone was indignant after hearing Ouyang Shua's conditions. That's right. We're not pushovers. You can bully us however you want. Also, how can we guarantee that you'll fulfill your promise? What if you don't acknowledge it when the time comes? If you don't believe me, you can sign a contract, Ouyang Shuo replied. That's for the best. What's so good about it? You're just a bunch of spineless cowards. Someone deliberately made a fuss. You. That lord's face immediately turned red after being scolded. Ouyang Shuo's eyes narrowed. He had long noticed that the lord who had scolded him had already taken the lead to make a fuss several times. His behavior was very strange, and he seemed to be deliberately causing trouble. His expression instantly turned cold. He looked at the lord and said in a cold voice, I don't care if you're doing this out of your own will or if there's someone behind you. I'm officially informing you that your territory is no longer under the protection of the Mountain Sea Territory. Prepare to pack up and leave. You. That lord's face turned red, as if he had been stabbed in his sore spot. Guards. Yes. 2 guards walked in. Ouyang Shuo pointed at the lord and said, Lord, please leave Shanghai City. Yes, sir. The guards dragged the pale lord out. He clearly didn't expect that Ouyang Shuo would turn hostile faster than flipping a book. He didn't even have the slightest chance to defend himself. Ouyang Shuo was quite magnanimous and allowed him to leave through the teleportation formation. Otherwise, he would just be waiting to wander in the wilderness. Don't be so arrogant. Someone will take care of you. Before the lord left, he left behind some ruthless words to vent the hatred in his heart. Ouyang Shuo didn't even look at him. He said to the other lords, How about it? Have you all made up your mind? Killing the chicken to warn the monkey just now had an immediate effect. The lords accepted their fate and agreed to sign a contract with Ouyang Shuo. After signing the contract, the lords bid farewell and left. Ouyang Shuo immediately issued a military order to Shi Wansui through the hummingbird. He ordered him to lead the 1st Division and be responsible for escorting the soldiers of the various territories back to Shanghai City. As for the troublemakers' territory, they would naturally occupy it and send the captives back to Shanghai City. In the end, there were a total of 12,500 soldiers in the 23 territories. Of course, the combat strength of these soldiers was a bit too horrible to look at. They were all using the equipment that the system had given them when they went through the class advancement. The reorganized army made up for the 3 great divisions, and the remaining soldiers were all assigned to the newly formed City Guard Division. This greatly sped up the formation of the City Guard Division. To be continued. Chapter 300. The contracts that Ouyang Shuo signed with the various lords were quickly exposed on the forums. Naturally, there was a bloodbath on the forums. The adventurers watched the show while the lords watched the process. After looking through the contents of the contracts, the lords came to a sudden realization. They understood the essence of the contracts and rushed to follow suit. The series of measures that Ouyang Shuo came up with using peace contracts as the core was called the Lian Province Model by the lords, and it instantly became popular in the China region. The significance of the Lian Province Model was to completely break the previous step-by-step annexation model. It changed from a purely military approach to one that used military means as the core, supplemented by diplomatic and administrative means. The 3-pronged approach pushed the territorial wars to a higher level. If one had to describe it, it was similar to colonization. To implement the Lian Province model, at least 2 conditions had to be met. First, the territory had to have the military power to crush everything else. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. Second, the signed territories had to be occupied in order to curb their development. Otherwise, it would be extremely easy to cause a backlash. Even so, there were still many territories that met these conditions. It wasn't limited to the members of the Yan-Huang Alliance and the Shanghai Alliance. None of the top 100 territories on the leaderboards were willing to be left out. For a moment, the great lords were sharpening their swords while the lesser lords were trembling with fear. In the noisy wilderness, the wind was howling. The prevalence of the Lian Province model signaled the beginning of the second phase of the territorial wars, the big fish devouring the small fish. The small shrimps from before had already been cruelly eliminated by the wilderness. Ouyang Shua, the butterfly that had traveled through time and space, once again set off a storm. The territorial wars broke out in advance, pushing the game to another unpredictable future. After the successful implementation of the Western region's strategy, Ouyang Shua began to turn his attention to the Eastern region. The situation in the Eastern region was more complicated. Because of the existence of Duanren County, Shanghai City's control over the Eastern region was far less than that of the Western region. Even so, Ouyang Shua didn't give up. As usual, he sent the same invitation to the 25 territories in the Eastern region. Even Ba Dao of Duanren County received an invitation from Ouyang Shua. Ba Dao took the invitation from the messenger. He was flustered and exasperated. He tore the invitation into pieces on the spot and said fiercely, "I'm not done with you." Of course, Ouyang Shua didn't expect Ba Dao to come. It was just a prank. When he thought of Ba Dao's expression when he received the invitation, Ouyang Shua was secretly delighted. Although Ouyang Shua didn't want to touch the chess piece that was Duanren County, he wouldn't allow it to grow. In order to contain Duanren County, the first step was to clip its wings and destroy its outer barrier. Due to Duanren County's absence, the effect of the second banquet was not as good as the first. Of the 25 feudal lords, only 19 were present. The remaining 6 had formed a small group with Ba Dao as the core. They were prepared to fight Shanghai City to the end. Ouyang Shua's expression didn't change as he signed a contract with the 19 lords. At the same time, he arranged for the 3rd Division to be responsible for the reorganization of the Eastern region's garrison troops. When the lords bid their farewells and left, Ouyang Shua laughed coldly. Useless. On the same day, the 2nd Division stationed at the northern barracks received Ouyang Shua's military order, requesting them to uproot the 5 territories that were absent from the conference in the shortest time possible, excluding Duanren County. Those who obey me shall prosper, those who oppose me shall perish. Luo Shirshin mobilized his troops immediately upon receiving the order. Since it was a long-range assault, Luo Shirshin left the 1st and 2nd Brigades in charge of guarding the barracks, while he personally led the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Brigades along the Qiushui River, heading east of Lianzhou Basin. Before leaving, Lin Yi and Sun Tingjiao came to Luo Shirshin's tent. "Division Commander, please don't do that. We finally have a battle to fight. We can't just leave the 2nd Brigade behind." "That's right, the 1st Brigade wants to join the battle as well." "Nonsense." Luo Shirshin had already established his authority in the 2nd Division, and decided to explain after some thought. "The Marquis wants you to be fast, ruthless, and accurate for this mission. You guys are heavy cavalry, not suitable for this mission. We may be heavy cavalry, but we're not slower than light cavalry at all." "That's right, this bit of weight is nothing for the Cyan Beetle Horse." "No." Luo Shirshin refused again. "If we all leave, who's going to stay and guard the barracks? The nomadic tribes in the north are eyeing us hungrily, we can't let our guard down." "All right." Lin Yi knew the gravity of the situation, and said unwillingly. "All right, stop being so wishy-washy. We'll fight if we follow the Marquis," Luo Shirshin said as he walked out of the tent, gathered the troops, and prepared to leave. The 2nd Division marched quickly, and arrived at their destination in the afternoon. Seeing that it was still early, Luo Shirshin made a prompt decision, giving the order not to wait until the next day. The 8,000 cavalrymen were like a whirlwind, sweeping through everything in their path with an unstoppable momentum. Before the enemy could react, they had already broken into the Lord's manor and completed their mission. In less than 2 hours they had taken down 3 territories. The last 2 territories were connected to Duanren County, and they had already received the news and sent a request for help to Blade. At this moment, the 2 feudal lords were filled with regret. They should not have been possessed and listened to Overlord Saber's bewitchment. Now they didn't get anything, and instead, they were going to lose their lives. Blade received the request for help, and he felt conflicted. If he saved them, Duanren County didn't have the confidence to fight against the 8,000 elites of Shanghai City. If he didn't save them, he would break his promise. More importantly, once the two territories fell, Duanren County's outer barrier would be swept away. It would become a completely isolated city. Because he was confident that Shanghai City wouldn't do anything to him, Blade wasn't prepared to fight them at all, and he didn't contact the Yan-Huang Alliance in advance. It was too late to ask for help now, and war wasn't child's play. In the end, Blade Ba made up his mind and said, "You two brothers, good luck." At this time, Luo Shixin had already surrounded the two territories with his troop. He purposely surrounded them, but didn't attack. He wanted to lure Blade Ba to save them, and then attack the reinforcements. Although the Marquis had ordered that they couldn't cross Duanren County's territory, if Blade Ba came to help, he could destroy them, and it wouldn't be going against the Marquis's order. Unfortunately, he overestimated Blade. Half an hour passed, and there was no movement in the city. Luo Shixin sat on his warhorse and smiled disdainfully and shook his head in disappointment. What a coward! He waved his hands, signaling the army to attack. The two territories vanished into thin air amidst the Lord's curses. Duanren County was the only territory left in the entire Lianzhou Basin. Ouyang Shuo had taken a big step in unifying the Lianzhou Basin. With their hatred for Blade Ba, the two feudal lords reincarnated in the Supreme Court's Reincarnation Hall. They walked out of the Reincarnation Hall, cursing, "Blade Ba is too much. He didn't even help us, and we trusted him so much. We've lost big this time." That's right, and the Yan-Huang Alliance. Bullsh *T, a bunch of cowards, scared out of their wits by Niawui. I'm going to the forum to expose them. If I don't ruin Blade Ba's reputation, I'm not a human. I don't think we need to do anything. Blade Ba won't live for long, and will be killed by Niawui sooner or later. Whatever, we have to do something, or else it'll be too frustrating. You're right, let's go to the forum and vent our anger. Just like that, a farce unfolded. Other than being mocked on the forum, their posts didn't cause any wave. Hitting a rock with an egg serves you right. Which bird is Blade Ba? I don't know him. Blade Ba? Mighty tyrant? Can't you tell? Two idiots, they were fooled, yet they still came to the forum to embarrass themselves. I'm really worried about their intelligence. Those who go against Brother Wui are all bad people. It's important to know one's own limits. How can they be feudal lords with such intelligence? Go home and take care of your children. Looking at the comments on the forum, the two feudal lords vomited blood. They were too ashamed to stay in Dali and didn't show their faces until the end of the game. After the war, Luo Shixin began to gather the captives and prepared to escort them back to Shanghai City. Seeing that it was getting late, they could only return the next day. On the other side, the 19 feudal lords were still reorganizing the army with Shanghai City's 3rd Division when they received the news that 5 territories had been eradicated. They couldn't help but feel lucky that they didn't agree to Blade Ba's invitation. Ouyang Shuo's ruthless methods left a deep impression on these feudal lords, and they didn't dare to have any other thoughts. The next day, under Bai Qi's instructions, the 3rd Division moved the eastern barracks to the edge of Duanren County. Using the 5 occupied territories as a base, they formed a line of defense and closely monitored every movement in Duanren County. Blade Ba's face darkened when he saw the enemy setting up camp right under his nose. In the eastern region, including the soldiers captured by the 2nd Division, there were a total of 13,200 soldiers. The Western and Western Divisions, in addition to the 3 Great Divisions and the City Guard Division, had an additional 10,000 soldiers. Under Bai Qi's suggestion, Ouyang Shuo issued a decree to regulate the organization of the city defense forces. The prefectural government was equipped with a garrison division, The prefectural government was equipped with a brigade of city guards, and finally, the county government was equipped with a city defense battalion. The city guard division would be controlled by the military department, but the local finance department would be responsible for their provisions and salaries. The newly formed City Guard Division would be assigned to Shanghai City's City Guard Division, and Shanghai City would be responsible for their provisions and salaries. According to the organization, Tianfeng City and Beihai City would each be assigned a City Guard Brigade, and Yishui, Gushin, Yongye, and Guangshui counties would each be assigned a County Guard Division. After the City Guard Division was completed, the remaining 3,000 soldiers would be transferred to temporary reserve duty, waiting for the follow-up reorganization. The originally recruited reserve duty would be transferred to the Real Reserve duty. They only needed to participate in the military training organized by the City Guard Division on time, and they didn't need to stay in the barrack. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.